Good morning. We're going to get started with an invocation from Monty Priest of New Church, and then that is still correct, right? That's sir. I've just been saying that. I've known Monty my whole life, basically. So, and then after that, we will have the pledge led by Councilman Greenwell. If everyone would stand, Monty.
Loving Father, we thank you so much for this new day. Thank you for those that we get to share it with. Thank you for our new mayor. We are so thankful and so proud of him. And thank you for all of our city council and our city officials. And Lord, we just pray that you would give us kindness and care for one another today and help us to show your love. We love you, Father, and we love one another. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I call this meeting of the City Council to order, and we have some items under Office of the Mayor that I will make my way to the front, and we will present. All right, we're going to begin with a pretty cool citation, and I have to credit Councilman Stonecipher with this idea, but we are the home here in Oklahoma City of some really remarkable education institutions that were recently recognized by U.S. News and World Report, and we have the leadership of most or all of these schools here this morning, and so I would ask our leaders here from Harding Charter Prep, Dove Science Academy, Classen School of Advanced Studies, and Harding Fine Arts to come up here and join me while we read this citation, if you wouldn't mind. Come on up, everybody. And clerk, if you wouldn't mind reading the citation.
Whereas U.S. News and World Report has released its 2018 edition of the best high schools, naming the top 5 schools for each state. Whereas 4 of the 5 top high schools selected for Oklahoma are in Oklahoma City. Whereas more than 20,000 high schools across the country were evaluated, and Harding Charter Preparatory was deemed Oklahoma's finest high school and earned a national ranking of 150th. The school offers advanced placement work and graduates 95% of its students, and Harding seniors have earned more than $5 million in college scholarships. Whereas, rounding out the top 5 were Oklahoma City's Dove Science Academy, Classen School of Advanced Studies, and Harding Fine Arts Academy. Tulsa's Booker T. Washington High School placed 4th in the state. Now, therefore, David Holt, the mayor of the city of Oklahoma City, does hereby commend the teachers and administration of these 4 exemplary Oklahoma City schools for their dedication to excellence in education. And he further commends the students of Harding Charter Preparatory, Dove Science Academy, Classen School of Advanced Studies, and Harding Fine Arts Academy for their hard work and determination to excel.
Thank you. What I might do is I might just do a little, this is a bit of a dated reference, but a little Phil Donahue here and walk down the line and ask each of you just to state your name and which institution you're with so we properly know what greatness we are in the presence of this morning.
I'm Ashley Davis, principal at Classen School of Advanced Studies.
Sila from Dove Science Academy, and thank you for having us today.
Mary Blankenship Pointer, Dove Science Academy.
Ümit Alp, Superintendent for Dove Schools.
Stephen Stefanik, Assistant Principal at Harding Charter Prep.
Milo Miller at Harding Charter Prep High School.
Joe Hughes, Harding Charter Prep High School, Assistant Principal.
Thank you all. Before we give you what I know will be a boisterous round of applause, is there anything that anybody from the council would like to say? I'm looking at you, Mark.
I'd just like to thank everybody for being here. We are so proud of your accomplishments. Keep fighting the good fight, and we look forward to seeing you next year.
Ditto. We're so proud of all the work that you guys do. We're very, very grateful, and it makes us all feel wonderful when we are in those rankings of things that are so important, because sometimes we see them in there, we're not in the right place, and so it's just wonderful for y'all. Thank you.
Let's show our appreciation. Tell you what, there are several copies of this, and I will let you guys work it out. Here's 4 copies. You're in charge. All right. Thank you so much for coming down here. All right. We also have a resolution of commendation for the June 2018 South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month. They are, of course, our employee, a city employee of the month that is sponsored by the South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club, and that person today is Buckley Pearson from Public Works. Come on up here, Buckley. We are very proud of you and very grateful for your service, and we all want to know a little bit more about what you're doing here, and so we are going to ask the clerk to read this resolution.
Whereas Buckley Pearson is an environmental technician in the Stormwater Quality Management Division of the Public Works Department. Buckley performs inspections on permitted facilities and is responsible for the 259 permittees in his section. Buckley also performs pollution investigations, responds to Action Center complaints, participates in the hazmat duty rotation, and hosts trainings and workshops. Whereas Buckley works well with permittees to keep them in compliance and up to date with changes to local, state, and federal environmental regulations. Whereas Buckley often takes an additional responsibility and is always willing to help coworkers on projects as needed. Whereas Buckley is dependable, reliable, and thorough in his work, making him an asset to his department and to the city. Whereas this council desires to recognize Buckley Pearson for his dedication, professionalism, and commitment to the residents of the city of Oklahoma City. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and council of the city of Oklahoma City that they hereby thank and commend Buckley Pearson, June 2018, South Oklahoma City Kiwanis Club Employee of the Month.
Well, very good. Thank you, Buckley. You know, we have the best city employees in the country, and you are certainly an exemplary example of that, and our citizens depend on you, and we're very grateful. So thank you. Having said that, this is a vote, and so we got to see how this turns out. We'll let you state your case after the fact. You may have some words to say if it fails. So if we wouldn't mind, I need a motion and a second. I've got it. Let's cast our votes. It passes unanimously. You are the... Yes, let's hear it. You are the employee of the month, and is there anything you would like to say, Buckley?
Just appreciate it. Appreciate everything.
Awesome. A man of few words. Thank you, Buckley. No, we're very grateful. Thank you very much. Congratulations, and that is absolutely yours to keep. Thanks again. Okay, I'm going to make my way up here for... So I should also say, while we're under office of the mayor and on the feel-good items, I don't have a resolution to this effect, but I am very, very proud, as I know we all are, of Meg Salyer and Brent Bryant, who received big awards last Thursday night at the annual Dean McGee Awards, and carried on a strong tradition of our city employees and city council people doing great things and being recognized for such. So we're very proud of you. Yeah. And finally, under Office of the Mayor, we have item 3B. I think we are inclined at this point to gravitate right now towards 3B2, which is entering into executive session to discuss one or more of the particular persons who have submitted applications for appointment to the office of council member for Ward 7. We will, I believe, carry this forward till the end of our other business, but we would cast our votes now to go into executive session. Is there a motion to do that?
Into executive session.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. As I stated, we will go into executive session after our other business. We now move on to item 4, Council of Journal Proceedings, item 4A and B. Do we have a motion? Got a motion? Do I hear a second? Second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 5, request for uncontested continuances. The city manager has a list.
Mr. Mayor, starting on page 19, under item 9C1, item E, 3301 Noma Road, we ask that be stricken. We need to re-notify. Item F, 3212 South Oklahoma, we ask that be stricken. The owner has repaired. Item G, 1221 Northwest 1st Street, we ask that be stricken. We need to re-notify. Moving to item 9D1E, 7001 South Country Club Drive, we ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. Item G, 3839 West Liberty, we ask that be stricken. We need to re-notify. Item M, 3630 Northwest 22nd Street, we ask that be stricken. The owner secured. Moving on to page 20. Item T, 1132 Southwest 50th Street, we ask that be stricken. The owner is secured. Moving to item 9E1, still on page 20. Item G, 3839 West Liberty, we ask that be stricken. We need to re-notify. Item K, 3630 Northwest 22nd Street, we ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. And item O, 1132 Southwest 50th Street, we ask that be stricken. The owner has secured. And then moving to page 23, we need to strike item 9M1A. 9M1A, we'll be changing that recommendation for approval and bringing that back.
Thank you, Jim. Moving on to item 6, revocable permits. We have item 6A, revocable permit with the Oklahoma City Boathouse Foundation for the 2018 Stars and Stripes River Festival. Is there anyone here to speak on this? If there is, please state your name and your address.
My name is Sarah Bettis. My address is 2405 Northwest 163rd Street, Edmond, Oklahoma, 73013.
For the record, that's your zip code. You really live in Oklahoma City. It's sort of a thing of mine, but go ahead.
I get Oklahoma City everything else. So.
Yeah, no. Don't go try to vote for the mayor of Edmond. They won't let you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. So I'm representing the Boathouse Foundation. I'm the national events manager. On June 23rd, we're going to be having the 2018 Stars and Stripes Festival. As always, this will feature rowing, kayaking, and dragon boating. We were going to have a run on the trails, the River Sport Run, the River Sport Challenge. That includes a kayaking portion. It's kind of like a biathlon. And we're expecting a lot of out-of-town competitors, and we're going to have a great day down at the Boathouse.
Well, very good. Councilwoman?
I would move approval.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. Have a great event. All right, 6B, revocable permit with One World Lantern Festival to hold the Oklahoma City One World Lantern Festival on June 9th, 2018 at Route 66 Park. And it appears we have someone to speak. If you wouldn't mind also stating your name and address.
Hi, I'm Danielle Lapsley. I'm with the Parks Department. I live at 1324 North Missouri Avenue. So Parks is happy to be co-sponsoring this event, and the group just isn't into town yet. So I'm going to be here to speak about it. This event is going to be happening at Route 66 Park. The entry fee is $25 until tomorrow, and then raises $5 up until day of entry. And it's $45 the day of. That gets you your entry into the festival, your lantern with the marker, and a keychain with an LED flashlight. So this is an event to sort of start a new year, set your intentions, and then at the end of the event, you release the lantern into the pond at Lake Route 66, and then they will go off and collect them afterwards.
Very good. Any comments or questions? And if not, Mr. Greiner, I would love a motion.
I was curious, so did we kind of recruit them to come here? Or
No,
did
they approached
contact
us.
Oh, okay. It was just it's a unique...
It is a very unique event.
It's not a run.
We're really excited to co-sponsor this one.
Okay, yeah. I'll move for approval.
Second. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. Thank you for making the trip across the street. We've got item 6C, revocable permit with Perry Publishing and Broadcasting Company for the Juneteenth Festival on June 16, 2018, Washington Park and Page Stadium. And if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address.
My name is Conan Neal. Address is 1325 Northwest 106th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma 73114. With Perry Publishing and Broadcasting, this is our 6th year using Washington Park for our Juneteenth Festival. Each year has grown. We're anticipating roughly about between the 3,000 to 5,000 people of attendance. It is free to the public. We have different contests such as Eating of the Greens, watermelon contest for the kids, moon bounces. So it's going to be a great festive day. So if y'all not doing anything next weekend, come out.
Cool. I will be there. Is there any other comments or questions or possibly a motion? We've got a motion and a second. We'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. Have a great event. All right. We've got item 6D, revocable right-of-way use permit with Downtown OKC, Inc. to hold Bricktown Parklet June 6th through September 3rd. And looks like we've got Joe Hudson.
Hello, thank you. Joe Hudson, 211 North Robinson with Downtown Oklahoma City Partnership. A parklet is a fun way to add additional space to an area. We love it in Bricktown. It's a fun spot for families and anyone visiting or from Oklahoma City.
Great. Thank you. By the way, I know I was off message by saying Inc., but that's what's on the agenda. So, yes, Partnership is the new brand.
We're still pushing that.
Okay, got it. Any other discussion? All right, cast our votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Item 6E, revocable right-of-way use permit with OKC Pride, Inc. to hold OKC Pride Weekend, June 22nd through the 24th, Northwest 39th between North Penn and North Youngs. And Lori?
Hello, I am Lori Honeycutt. I'm the OKC Pride President. We are here to present our 41st annual OKC Pride event to be held June 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Our parade will be held on June 24th, closing the streets from Classen on Penn to Youngs on Northwest 39th.
Very good. Any comments or questions? If not, I'll take a motion from Councilman Shadid.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. We'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great event. And item 6F, revocable right-of-way use permit with Oklahoma Baptist Homes for Children to hold Miles for Smiles, June 16th, Southwest 164th and Southwestern.
Morning.
Good morning. If you wouldn't mind saying your name and address.
Yeah, Scott Conrad, 16301 Southwestern, Oklahoma City, 73170. Our annual bike ride, this is our 18th annual bike ride. We have 27, let me make sure I get these right, 44 and 56-mile routes if you want to ride in our ride. And so it's our 18th annual, and we're excited to have it, so we appreciate you guys supporting us.
Great. Do we have a motion from...
motion for approval.
Maybe a second from Councilman Greenwell? Good.
We hope to see you riding.
Well, very good. Seeing no discussion, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And finally, we have 6G, revocable right-of-way use permit with Oklahoma Lawyers for Children to hold the Masquerade 5K on June 30th, Classen Court between Northwest 57th and 58th. Is there anyone here to speak for that? Or maybe just a lawyer in the room? Or okay. Fair enough. Councilman Shadid. All right. Moves approval? Nope. Very good. We'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. All right, we will now recess the council meeting and convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority, which has the same membership as the council, and we have two items here, A and B, and is there a motion?
Move the items.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority and convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority, and we have one item here, claims and payroll.
Move the item.
Got a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. We will adjourn the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority and convene as the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust, where we have one item for claims and payroll.
Move the item.
Got a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust and reconvene as the council. We now have item 7 on our council agenda, which is the consent docket.
Those items subject to individual consideration.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second of the items subject to individual consideration. Are there any items that anybody wants to pull out?
Could we pull out item AG, please?
AG.
You beat me to it, Todd. Go for AG.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like Eric Winger, when it comes time to speak to AJ.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a presentation this morning on the award of the Convention Center.
AY.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Well, we will take them in order, ignoring perhaps the screen lowering over my head, but I think we'll go ahead and do it in order with AG first. That was the first request. Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that this is awarding the Planning Design Group for Architectural Services for Manuel Perez Park that'll be over there by the Hoffman Skate Park. And this is, I've been working with the community on this thing, and we've gotten tons of input on the design of it. It's going to be fantastic. There's going to be the Medal of Honor Memorial, water feature, and just a lot of great improvements over there. So really happy to see this project continue to move along.
Cool.
And we need to point out that it's listed as Ward 6, but it really is in Ward 4.
Did you want to add anything?
Doing my best.
Okay. Well, very good. Anything else to say about that? Seeing no discussion on that item. AJ, Larry wanted to hear from Eric on that.
Thank you, Your Honor. AJ is a project that's been in the works for a long time. It shows the cooperation, what can be accomplished between the state, the Turnpike Authority, and Oklahoma City. Thanks to Director Ridley, who has been pioneering this for us. It's a quality of life issue for many, many residents in Ward 3. Eric, if you would give us a brief update and overview of what it is.
I'll be happy to. So I think most are familiar. The turnpike work that the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority has begun in West Oklahoma City is well underway. There's the acquisition of the property is complete, the construction's ongoing. I mean, it's expected to be completed sometime in late 2020. But with that, there was actually a cooperative agreement reached with Oklahoma City to do 2 miles of Cerro Road widening. This is going to be from Southwest 29th to Southwest 59th. It was also a project that was included in the city's recently approved 2017 bond issue. So the item that is on the agenda today is the agreement with the Turnpike Authority to actually do the work on Cerro Road in conjunction with the work on the Turnpike to have them both finish at approximately the same time. So we would expect as this work gets ready to go, construction could begin as early as this fall, but then it would be widened and opened in late 2020 when the Turnpike opens as well. So this is an agreement. The city's not actually doing the work. We're simply funding the Turnpike Authority to do the work, and so we'll be cooperative with them, and we'll also receive periodic updates.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Anything else to say? Okay. Well, that leaves us with the presentation for item AY under the consent docket. Mr. Couch?
Yes, we're pleased to present this morning. It's the largest capital improvement project contract award in the city's history. And Adam Polch is here this morning with Populous, our consultants on this project. And Adam has been before us several times in the past.
Council, City Manager, Mayor, it's great to meet you. We've been up here quite often over the past 2.5 years, so today is certainly a exciting day for the future of the project. And it's no small feat to be here. There's been a lot of work that has gone on, not only past 2 years, but I'd say the past, 5 or 10 years to get this project out of the ground. So again, and it's not just us here at Populous. We have a robust local team of consultants that we've been working with for the duration of this project, along with our team in Kansas City and some of our consultants. So again, it's a very exciting time for this. So before we go over the bids, we thought it'd be great to maybe just give a little recap on some of the design elements of the project. This might be the last time I give this presentation to you, so bear with me. Let's see if this works. There we go. So, years ago, there was an agreed-upon program for this project. It was the 200,000 square foot exhibit hall, a 30,000 square foot ballroom, and the 45,000 square foot of meeting room space. And so we made an agreement with the city and our subcommittee that we would try our hardest to always deliver this full program for this project. And we're proud to say that we never had to sacrifice any program elements through the duration of design to get this project where it is today. So again, we're very proud, and we take pride at Populous in being able to deliver these projects on budget and on time. So again, this is something that we can all be proud of, not only us as the designers, but also our subcommittee, Citizens Advisory Board, and all of the other committees that we've been involved with for the duration of design. So I'm sure we're all aware of the construction that's happening currently. We have the park, the streetcar, soon to be convention center, and the Omni Hotel. This was visioned years ago, and to see it start to take life today is certainly very powerful. Some views looking at the exterior of the building. We've reviewed a lot of materials, not only with our MAPS team, our subcommittee, but it's a combination of locally sourced terracotta, precast concrete, some metal panel to emphasize some of the important features of the interior and exterior of the building. And again, we have a large expanses of curtain wall. We pride ourselves at Populous of designing unique convention center experiences, and one of those is bringing natural light in and out of the building. The days of sitting in dark meeting rooms are slowly coming to an end, and with an asset like the park across the street, we thought it was extremely valuable to allow those views and vistas to happen for patrons inside the facility. Again, looking north on the new Robinson, the rethought Robinson Boulevard between the park and the convention center. Some of the interior spaces, typically convention centers of the past have been kind of bland white boxes. We, again, took extreme consideration in the material selection for the inside of this building. We developed a concept of earth to sky. So the ground level, the exhibit hall, is reminiscent of colors and materials that you would find on the earth. As you move up to the building, we used the palette that you would relate to the canopies of the trees in the park. Then as you go up to the ballroom, we call it the Painted Sky Ballroom. Again, you'll see a lot of light and reflective materials there. So again, in all these renderings, you can see that there's an abundance of natural light, again, to allow for a healthy and meaningful experience as you circulate the building. Hover on the meeting rooms for a second. These meeting rooms, this was something that we, early on in the project, we actually met with Larry Nichols and his team in Devon Tower, and they have meeting rooms similar to this with views out to the park across the street, and it was something that we felt that we could capture in this building, so you can see the glass at the end of the meeting rooms, again, allowing those views over the park. You'll be above the tree canopy, so something that's certainly powerful. The ballroom will actually open up to expand from 30,000 square feet to 45,000 square feet with the adjacent 5,000 square foot balcony to the facility. And again, inside the ballroom, something that's unique to the project, we have these custom metal panels that are unique to Oklahoma City, something that will certainly be a unique experience not only for this facility but in the industry as well. So the bidding results, I'm sure we're all aware that the bidding results were favorable. For a competitively bid project like this is something that we see that's unique to the industry. Normally, for a project of this size, we usually do a design build or a contractor at risk. So this was a unique experience for us as a design team, and certainly the process that we have here in Oklahoma City has proven to be favorable for a project of this size. Our project budget was around $194 million. As a good faith effort from our design team, because of, we all know, the economy kind of swings up and down, whether it's steel tariffs or the local workforce, we always carry a contingency in our estimating fee just in case something arises that we did not plan for. However, the bidding climate was favorable for this project. It was a high-profile project. I know in the pre-bid meeting we had over 300 people attending and showing interest in it. So again, the bids were received from 3 companies. We had Flintco, based out of Tulsa, J.E. Dunn, which is obviously a Kansas City-based firm, and we had Archer Western Construction as well. The winning bid was Flintco at approximately $173 million, with all of the alternates in the project. This is a positive thing when we look at all the bids in relationship to each other, because when we saw the bids come in low, our initial reaction was, what did they miss? What did we not draw? Lots of factors, but when you put the bids next to each other and you see all 3 firms come in within this range, this close to each other, it really says a lot about the drawing package, the design team, and the work that we've done with the city and our respective subcommittee to put together a tight package to receive bids that are this close to each other. So again, there's a lot of factors that were positive in these bidding results, and we're happy to say that Flintco came out on top, and we're very excited to start working with them for the duration of this project. So we had a special subcommittee meeting in early May to review the alternates. Because they were all under budget, they were all on the table to select these alternates for the project. We identified 9 alternates as a good faith effort just in case the bids came over bid. We have exhibit hall partitions, the parking lot, the road, the reconstruction of 6th Street, equipment in the central utility plant, the exterior vertical shade fins, an elevated climate-controlled bridge connection to the Omni Hotel, some ballroom technology in the ceiling of the ballroom, and the assisted listening loop that we are installing in all of the meeting rooms and the ballroom areas. So it was decided at our subcommittee that they would move forward with all the alternates except for alternate number 4. Alternate number 4 is the central utility plant equipment. The building is designed to hold the equipment with the space allowed in the building. However, there is an ongoing discussion between the City of Oklahoma City and Veolia Energy for Veolia to provide power to the building. I believe that that is close. It's not finalized yet, but it was elected by our subcommittee to not move forward with that alternate. So they will be taking alternates 1 through 8 and not alternate number 4 in the final bid price of the building.
One question on the alternates. I know there was some discussion about the windows that face the west and the heat and the sunset. And is that a part of these alternates, or is that something separate?
No, the alternate number 5, I'll click through these real quick and I'll get to your question when we get to the slide. So we have them called out in the diagrams here. Again, the first alternate was operable partitions for the X hall, and again, since it was favorable, we will be accepting this alternate to subdivide the halls from 1 large hall to 4 smaller halls. The parking lot to the south, again, this was designed with an expansion in mind down the road. However, to utilize that land today, we will have a surface parking lot down there to serve not only the convention center, but the park and all the other amenities around the site. The reconstruction of 6th Street between that parking lot and the convention center. An enhanced 4th Street Plaza. This is something that we've been working with the Omni team on how we can better connect each facility. So that it will still be an open street with the ability to close the street with enhanced paving and interaction for the pedestrians on the ground between the 2 facilities. The central utility plant, as you can see, the equipment that's hidden in red, or that's colored in red, that is the alternate. So the space will still be there so that at any time the relationship with Veolia would snag and the facility would need to provide its own power and energy. You can always add this equipment back into the facility. This is the one that the subcommittee elected not to take. And the vertical shade fins, to answer your question, it was something that was designed to help protect the building. However, architecturally, it was functioning well on its own, and the mechanical systems in the building were robust enough to basically handle the heating and cooling loads that would be placed on that glass. But we feel from an architectural perspective, it was something that was desirable to enhance the look of the building. So it will be in the project as we move forward, yes. Alternate number 6 is the bridge to the hotel. Again, this is something that has been under intense coordination with the Omni and their design team. The smart bars in the ceiling, this is a level of technology that is unique to convention centers where planners can come in and plug directly into the ceiling and tie into the building automation systems. And then lastly, alternate number 8. This was an alternate because it was brought to us late in the design process from a local company here in Oklahoma City for assisted hearing loops in all the public space. This is for, or in all the meeting and ballroom. This is for individuals with assisted hearing devices. This allows them to tie in to a unique system within each room to better project frequencies into their assisted hearing devices during any kind of meeting or general sessions. So a schedule update. With your approval today, today's June 5th, we would generally issue a notice to proceed tomorrow to Flintco, and I know that the groundbreaking is planned for next Friday, June 15th. I know that Mike Carrier and his team are working hard on an exciting day for everyone for the groundbreaking. So construction completion would be approximately 2 years from that, 24 months. So June 16th of 2020, 24-month construction, and we decided to offer in our drawing specifications a $5,000 per day up to 30 days maximum incentive for a total of $150,000 for early completion. However, for late completion, that goes on the opposite side as well. So it's something that we believe will fit nicely with the construction process and how they end up delivering the project. So with that being said, it's my pleasure to be up here. Again, it's been great building relationships with everybody here in the city. It's certainly unique for projects of this size, and we really appreciate this design process, and now it's time to get out of the ground. So it's very exciting. So thank you. Any questions? I'm sorry.
Great. Any questions?
What's the size of groups that this convention center will be able to accommodate? Like, are there small rooms to where a group as small as 30 to 50 could utilize a particular room, and then when you get a really large group, how many people can this accommodate?
Yeah, so, we've designed this facility with ultimate flexibility in mind. We like to say that you should never have to say no on how you would use this building. All of the rooms and all of the program areas carry an inherent level of flexibility where those rooms can be divided up to a group, I would say even smaller than that, maybe 10 to 20 people. And for example, you have a set of meeting rooms, 4 sets of meeting rooms that can be divided and that small, or they can grow to approximately 10,000 square feet, allowing 1,500 people in those rooms, right? So you see that level of flexibility in every space that we designed. On top of that, we've designed entries at specific points of the building, so where you could have multiple groups using the building at one time, essentially eliminating the amount of days that the building would have to be dark, if that makes sense. So it'll be up to the operator and the sales team on how they want to fill the building, but we've certainly put all options on the table for them on how they can fill and sell this facility.
Thank you. And Jim, have we decided who will operate or manage the facility?
Yes, we have a contract with SMG.
Okay.
And to add, SMG has been a partner of ours for the design, and they have been involved in all the decisions that we've made, and they have all the way down to the forks on the tables and the drills in the shops. So they are on board with everything that we've shown to date as well.
One last question. So are there cooking facilities built into the convention center?
Yeah, there's approximately 10,000 square foot kitchen located adjacent to the ballroom that will provide full catering for the entire facility.
Okay. Thank you.
We've discussed in the past that a sizable number of convention centers built across the country, maybe even the majority, have solar panel power on the roofs. Is that something that can be incorporated in the future?
Yeah, so we went through this study. I believe we had this discussion maybe 6 or so months ago. It's not as simple as putting it all across the roof, if that makes sense, but there are areas on the building that can accept solar. It was cost prohibitive to reinforce the structure over the exhibit hall, for example, to accept solar panels, but there are areas above the meeting rooms and ballroom, for example, that can allow solar to be attached to the building.
I think, Mayor, if I could just say on the record, what an unbelievable process this has been that we've all walked through over these years. We appreciate the team so much, and I think I said when the bids were opened, I was dancing, and I still am. It's incredibly exciting to be able to bring this project of this quality in at that level, and I just think it speaks to the amount of detail by Populous, but also David Todd, I want to recognize you and your staff, subcommittees, everybody's just done such a great job, and this is really the final piece of this MAPS 3 puzzle, and it's so exciting.
I appreciate that, and I will say that this process for the City of Oklahoma City has certainly made an impact on the industry, and there's a lot of eyes on how we did this together across the nation right now, so it's something to be very proud of. So.
Very good. Yeah, certainly a milestone today is in the MAPS 3 implementation process, and it's worth noting there's also some really good streetcar items on today's consent docket as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that resolves the items that we had pulled out. Is there any other discussion on anything on the consent docket? If not, we will cast our votes. Passes unanimously. Moving on to item 8, the concurrence docket. Got a motion and a second. Is there anything anybody wants to pull out? Seeing none, seeing no discussion, cast our votes. Concurrence docket passes unanimously. That brings us to item 9, items requiring separate votes. We have 9A, ordinances on final hearing recommended for approval. And we'll start with number 1, ABC 925. This is a ABC2 overlay of the C3 commercial district at 9148 North MacArthur Boulevard. Councilman Greiner.
Has anybody signed up for this one? No. Okay, move for approval.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anyone here to speak about it? Seeing none, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. Moving on to 9A2, PUD 1677. This is it, changing 13400 North Council Road from R1 single family to PUD 1677. Councilman Stonecipher.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is an ordinance on final hearing to rezone a certain piece of property to a PUD. It's brought forth by the applicant, 3 Jacks LLC, that's represented by David Box. It's to permit a duplex residential development. I don't think there's anybody that's here in protest. I'd move for approval of the item at this time.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. Is there anyone here that came to speak on this item? All right. Seeing none, no discussion on the council. We'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9A3, rezone 4200 Southeast 59th from I-2 to PUD 1678. Councilman Stone.
Thank you, Mayor. Has anyone signed up to speak? This is going to be a great use for a facility that's currently empty down there, and with that, I'll move for approval.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak on this item? Seeing none and seeing no discussion on the council, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. Now we're on item 9A4, rezoning 3330 Northwest 112th Terrace from PUD 490 to SPUD 1046. Councilman Stonecipher.
Yes, thank you again, Your Honor. This is an ordinance on final hearing to rezone a certain piece of property to a planned unit development. And the applicant, Blake Bullard, is here. I don't think there's anyone in opposition. Blake, why don't you come up and speak to what you've done? The applicant is requesting, and I understand the council's philosophy on this on emergencies, but he is asking for an emergency in this instance, and he wants to have the opportunity to explain why he feels an emergency is appropriate.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address.
Sure. Blake Bullard, 6712 Northwest 131st Street, Oklahoma City, 73142. We took over the lighthouse. You guys know the lighthouse properties at Hefner and Lake Hefner Parkway. We took over the sand volleyball courts a year ago, and we've developed it into the point where it's kind of it's a huge draw for a lot of people. We wanted to turn it into a recreational area with a bar. It's a seasonal business, and we're already in the middle of summer. I have 3 charity tournaments in the next month. 2 of them are for high school girls volleyball, and another one is for OKC interns. I have employees that have been waiting for me to hire that I don't know how much longer I can wait on them. And I have about 140 volleyball teams that start next week. So I do understand your philosophy of not doing a lot of them, but I would really appreciate it.
The one thing I'd say is that the applicant pointed out to me that there are about 150 teams involved. He has all these charitable events out there, that the difficulty is that he's got people that are waiting to go to work, and he may lose them if this is delayed much longer. He has food trucks that come to these events, and you have to order those months in advance to make it work. And so since it's a seasonal business, since he has been very persistent and been down here numerous times to meet with us and talk about this, and he's trying to really make this go as a sole proprietor and an entrepreneur. First of all, I'd like to move for approval of the item, and then I'll ask for the emergency. So at this time, I'd move for approval of the item.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second on the item. The emergency is a separate vote. This first motion only requires a majority, and so is there any further discussion on it? Seeing none, cast our votes, and it passes 6 to 1. Okay. Now we have the potential emergency. And I would point out that though we rarely adopt them, they're always noticed, and you'll see that at 9A on the bottom of page 17. So it's always an option, and do we have a motion to that effect?
I'd move for the emergency.
Okay. All right.
Has there been any protest along the way?
He, on his own, has gone and met with the neighborhood, and then the Planning Commission required, were there 2 meetings with the neighborhoods? They met 3 times. At the Planning Commission, it was unanimous. Was there anyone there protesting at the Planning Commission?
Not a soul.
Okay.
I believe there was a protest on it at one point, was there not, Bob?
There was concern about the access on that road, and he met with the Neighborhood Association president, I believe, and they worked out a solution on that.
There was concern about the road. There was concern about a fence, which I think you, even though you don't own the land, you put up a fence.
Right. So I met with Brian Ferguson, who's the Coal Creek Homeowners Association president, and the past president and the treasurer for the Coal Creek condos, I guess, I forget the name of it, right behind us. They were concerned about the fence that's been there that the actual landlord has been refused to replace for almost a decade, and we replaced it on our dime. It's not it wasn't ours. We have agreed with Brian to close off the back gate during operational hours so that it eases their concern with people driving through the neighborhood later at night.
Okay. Councilman McAtee.
Is there a second? Okay.
So we have a motion and a second on the emergency, but we're now in the posture of discussion, and Councilman McAtee.
I can count, but I do feel obligated to keep my consistency going with respect to emergency votes. I don't feel that the particular items that he suggested were needed for an emergency meets the criteria for the emergency. And in order to give the public a chance to digest this particular new venue. I'm going to vote against the emergency. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, the only thing I'd say in addition is, I think the thing that persuaded me to move for this as an emergency was the fact that he's trying to hire people and create jobs, and I'd like to see those people work for him instead of continuing to look for employment.
Okay. Any further discussion? We've got a motion on the floor. Now, this is a reminder that an emergency requires 7 votes. 7 votes for passage. So we'll cast our votes, and the emergency fails 6-2. 6-2. Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. Moving on to item 9A5, rezoning of 1619 North Penn from R1 to SPUD 1047. Councilwoman Salyer.
Has anyone signed up, Francis, to speak on this one? This is a ordinance that replaces a pre-existing garage apartment on the back of a property with a 2-story duplex. There were no protests. It's in conformance with the comp plan, and staff recommended approval. I would ask for approval.
All right, we've got a motion and a second on this item. Is anyone here wish to speak on it? Seeing none, seeing no discussion on the council, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimous. Lee, Mark? Sorry. All right. Next item, 9A6, right? So we are, yes. Rezoning 1117 Northwest 56th from SPUD 383 to SPUD 1052. Councilman Shadid.
Anybody sign up to speak? There were no protests, and it passed the Planning Commission unanimously. I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Is anyone here wish to speak on this item? Seeing none and no discussion on the council, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. And now we are down to an item that's been deferred a couple times, 9B1, which is amendment to the master design statement to include screening along Northwest 64th and limit one drive on North Independence. And then item 9B2, ordinance on final hearing at 3301 Northwest 63rd, rezoning from O2 and R1 to SPUD 1045. These would be 2 separate items requiring 2 separate motions and votes. Councilman Shadid.
I appreciate the council's patience with 2 deferrals and applicant, and my understanding is that you met again and came to a resolution on all the issues.
Yes,
and
sir.
those have been incorporated into an amendment.
Yes, sir. Mark Ferris, 2933 South Bryant Avenue. We have met with the neighbors on numerous occasions. The last meeting, the discussion centered around the fence, or site-proof fence that the planning department requested. The neighbors would prefer that the fence material, for lack of a better term, would be plant material and not a wood or stockade fence. And there was emails and letters sent by the neighbors suggesting that the fence material be plants, a living barrier, so to speak. And that was their only request.
Okay. Anybody else sign up to speak? Or? No, sir. I move for approval.
We've got a motion and a second, and on this, and we're talking about 9B1. And is there anyone who wishes to speak? Seeing none and no further discussion, we'll cast our votes on that item. Passes unanimously. And now 9B2. Got a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, we'll cast our votes, and that passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Now we move on to 9C1, public hearing regarding these dilapidated structures. They are listed on the agenda, and of course 2 or 3 were stricken at the beginning of the meeting. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on any of these items? Seeing none.
Mayor, could we put up the slide on item C?
Okay.
I just want to point out how bad this is. This is really dangerous, and I appreciate very much the attention to working on this as quickly as we can. The building is gutted. There's been a fire. It's full of trash. It is an absolute nightmare, and it needs to be dealt with as quickly as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on these items? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt a resolution declaring these structures to be dilapidated. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9D1, this is the public hearing regarding this list of unsecured structures, subject to the ones that were stricken from the list earlier by the city manager. Is there anyone here to speak on any of these items under 9D1? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution under item 9D2, declaring the structures unsecured. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Now we are at 9E1, public hearing regarding abandoned buildings. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on any of these items at 9E1? And of course, a few of them, again, were stricken by the city manager at the beginning of the meeting. Seeing no discussion from the council or from the audience, I'd entertain a motion regarding 9E2, a resolution declaring that these buildings are abandoned. Got a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, we are now arrived at a pretty big deal. 9F1, this is the first we'll begin. This is in regards to the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget for the city of Oklahoma City. We'll begin with the public hearing, which will lead off with a presentation.
Doug Dollar is here this morning to summarize the budget. Just to set this out for you, his presentation is going to look a lot like the presentation that he did several weeks ago. He will highlight the changes for this year's budget, and then at the request of Councilman Stonecipher, there is an amendment that will be on it. And with that, Doug Dollar is here.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to be here to present the FY19 budget for your consideration. I will just start off with a look at our revenue. Our total budget's $1.56 billion. Largest recurring revenue source is taxes, total over $653 million, or about 42% of the total. Sales tax, the largest source in the category, and it's over $465 million of that. When looking at the total budget, the taxes category also includes property taxes, which again in Oklahoma we can only use for debt service and for judgments. So that goes to pay off our general obligation bonds and is about $93 million. I'm going to skip over the smaller revenue sources to just jump to fund balance. Fund balance represents the second largest revenue source of this year at 37.4% or $583 million. And MAPS 3, again, a very significant piece of that, $437.5 million. And because of that large size of fund balance in MAPS 3, we broke that out separately just so you could see what component that is of the total budget. But the remaining funds contribute $146.5 million in fund balance, with the next largest source being the Better Streets Safer City Tax Fund. But it's about 1/8 the size of MAPS 3 fund balance at $37.8 million. As we look at our operating portion of the budget, revenue totals $701 million. Again, taxes the largest category, with sales tax being the biggest as well at $354 million. Fees and charges are the next largest source in the operating budget and account for about 26% of the operating budget, and the remaining areas total 8.3%. When we zoom in on the general fund, again, the distribution is somewhat similar. Taxes make up 69.4% of the total. Sales tax is 55.5% of the total at $255 million. And the primary source in the other taxes category, in addition to sales tax, is our use tax, which we have at $50.7 million or 11% of the general fund. The other parts of the general fund make up about 30% of our total revenue. So when we turn to the expenditure side of the budget, again, it matches up $1.56 billion, and we've put here the categories that are required by the Municipal Budget Act. Normally, personal services is the largest category. It's 32.1%. But this year, capital outlay is the largest at over 41%. Again, MAPS 3 we've split out so that you can see how significant it is. And again, that's the total remainder in the MAPS 3 sales tax. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to spend all of that next year, but they have the authority to if they need to. And they have the encumbrances like the convention center that was just awarded today. We've got all of that encumbered and reserved so that's available as that project goes through its process.
But we know only half the money will be spent next year because it'll be a 2-year construction project.
As we look at the general fund expenditures by area, again, you can see public safety is our largest percentage of our general fund budget, 64.1%. That's $294.7 million. General government comes in at 8.2%. That's because all general government functions are located in the general fund. Public services are the second largest category at 18.4%. That includes public works, development services, and planning. And finally, culture and recreation in the general fund is made up of the Parks and Recreation Department and the cost for operating the Cox Convention Center and the Chesapeake Arena. So some of the significant changes that are in the FY19 budget: in public transportation and parking, we've added operations for the streetcar, Sunday bus service, and an additional route for night service. Route 22 is being added for night service. In Parks and Recreation, we continue to look to leverage public-private partnerships with the operations of the Scissortail Park, funded next year through the Scissortail Park Foundation, and we begin contracting out operations of the Civic Center next year through the Civic Center Foundation. In Public Works, we've added 18 positions, including 12 to take over utility cut repairs and 5 to help manage projects under the Better Street, Safer City sales tax and GEO bond issue. Development Services is adding 10 positions with additions coming in each of their divisions. Airports is adding 7 positions in various areas. And the amendment that you'll be considering in just a few moments would add a community service representative in municipal courts, as suggested by Councilman Stonecipher last week. That would be in addition to 2 records control clerks that were included in the proposed budget for municipal courts. Also in also in Parks and Recreation, we had 4 positions, 2 for trails maintenance and 2 for field maintenance at the new Lightning Creek fields, also at Wheeler Park and Stars and Stripes Park. And finally, it seems a little bit like an afterthought because we've already started down this path in the current year, but FY19 contains a full year of funding for the 189 positions added under the quarter-cent sales tax increase that went into effect January 1st. The full year of funding this year adds almost $11 million to the general fund budget. Again, we budgeted that for 4 months in the current year. This adds the other 8 months for that funding. So again, trying to deliver to our citizens what we've told them we're going to do with that money. Now, we talked at the presentations, a number of the large departments presented over the last 5 weeks. Many of them talked also about their trust budgets, not just their city budgets. The budget that is before you is just for the city side of our operations, so it does not include trust budgets such as Aquit, where they have the capital for the Lake Atoka pipeline, or the airport trust, the terminal expansion. We'll be bringing to you at your next meeting the budget for the PPA and the MFA, and those are also separate trusts. But just wanted to make clear, again, this is just for the city portion of the budget that you have before you. And just again, in summary, we're looking at $1.56 billion. You'll note, if you compare this slide to what I showed the first week when we presented the budget, a slightly different figure for the FY18 budget, and that's simply because we had an amendment that was adopted a couple of weeks ago that changed the FY18 budget to include the Maps for Kids Trust coming in back to the city, zoo sales tax, hotel motel tax, a couple other things were amended in the FY18 budget. And then just one other note, what you've got before you is attached to the resolution are the pages out of the budget book that talk about each fund. That's what's going to be adopted today. If you compare, we have an amended, in case you vote for the amendment to change the position at courts, or the original as was presented back on May 1st. The difference between those two is really on one page. Page 23 of the attachment is the general fund, where we have the total budget for municipal courts and the total budget for non-departmental. We'd make an addition to municipal courts and subtract that out of non-departmental, so the bottom line stays exactly the same for the general fund. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any on the budget.
Any questions for Doug before we do have some citizens that want to speak on the budget, so we can proceed to that before we move on. But any questions for Doug while he's standing there? Okay, thank you, Doug. Now, this is the final. We've had several public hearings on the FY 2018-2019 budget. This is the final one and the final opportunity for citizens to be heard. And I believe we are joined by the Honorable Forrest Bennett, who would like to speak, State Representative from South Oklahoma City. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address, Mr. Bennett, Representative Bennett.
My name is Forrest Bennett, Southwest 424 Southwest 54th Street, disgruntled constituent. Some of you may know, some of you may not, that this budget includes, for the first time ever, Sunday bus service. And my friend James Cooper, who's left, and I were just remarking about how incredible this is for us and for hundreds of constituents in Oklahoma City who you and I may not run into a whole lot, though. Councilman Greenwell and I do when we ride the bus. This is not a day for us or for the mayor or for any elected official, but the people who this will greatly impact will probably never come to this room and have an opportunity to speak. So I wanted to speak on their behalf and thank you in advance for making this happen for them. We are currently, as far as I know, the largest city in the United States that does not have Sunday transit service. Many of the people who rely on public transit in Oklahoma City are hourly wage workers and shift job workers. Those jobs don't stop on Sundays. That work is available on Sundays. And what we're going to be doing today through approval of this is giving people the opportunity to make economic advances for themselves and for their families. And it is humbling for me as somebody who works at 23rd and Lincoln to witness a government be responsive to its citizens and actually get sizable things done for them in a timely manner. And though this could not have come soon enough, it is a great first step. This does not mean I will not continue to be a thorn in your side, Mr. Mayor, about public transit issues and getting that streetcar down to the south side. But this is a wonderful, wonderful first step. And on behalf of the thousands of people with whom I ride the bus and those who rely on public transit to make the American dream come true for themselves and for their families, I thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Representative Bennett, could I be a thorn in your side just briefly and say that the state funding for public transit has not changed in more than 10 years at least. Yep. And we would love some support at 23rd and Lincoln to help us provide much more enhanced public transit at the city level. So please.
I too would love to have some additional members of the House and Senate support me in shouting about that. Currently, I'm one of a few that yells into a void, but soon enough we will change this. And I think when city governments like yours take incredible steps in the right direction, that it will encourage the rest of us to do the same. So thank you very much.
Representative Bennett. Oh yeah. Hey, we've all got something to say here. No, but thank you for coming down and speaking about this. It's an opportunity for us to raise the awareness for all citizens, though it's within their hands to increase, to continue to increase the coverage and the frequency of bus service by utilizing the bus service. That's our only limitation is, lack of numbers to support an increase in frequency and coverage. So those citizens out there in Oklahoma City who want to see a continuing expanding bus service, all they have to do is join us.
They've got to join us on the bus, you're right.
And they'll have really an enjoyable time. I've never had an unpleasant ride.
And I haven't either, and you're right. And I just want to reiterate that steps like this give people like myself and constituents like Caleb Savage and Joe Beth Hammond, who also rely on the bus, it gives us the kind of hope and encouragement that will get us to be energized in encouraging our friends to follow the public transit route as well. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for holding state leaders' feet to the fire on this issue as well, because it's beyond time that we've done something about it.
Anything else for Representative Bennett?
Thanks for the sidewalks too, by the way.
Thank you, Representative. We thank you for your patience as well, but we trust that the hour you spent here was actually a refreshing change of pace from the dysfunction of your other jobs. So, as he mentioned, we are also joined by COTPA trustee James Cooper. James, did you wish to say anything? You don't have to.
Hi, good morning, everyone. James Cooper, 619 Northwest 28th Street. I live in the historic Paseo District. Councilman Shadid, you've represented me since 2011, and you have advocated for this for a long time. And even though we've had our disagreements, thank you. And thank you, Councilwoman Salyer, for helping push this. Mayor Holt, City Manager Couch, and the rest of the city council members I have not had the honor to meet. Thank you. This means a lot. I just want to double down on everything that Representative Bennett just said. This is about people who work in our service industry who need to get to work. And as someone who's been a server, I teach middle school now, but as someone who's been a server, I know that very often people lose their jobs because they don't have reliable public transportation. And what you all have just done here today has given them foundation. So thank you very much, and thank you for the honor of serving with Embark and with COPPA. Sorry, this is very emotional for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. And we also have someone who's signed up, Jeremy Moses. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address, Jeremy.
Jeremy Moses, 12205 Southwestern Avenue, apartment 1212, 73170. I just want to thank this council and this city for being willing to vote on this issue of Sunday bus service and also increased nighttime service on the 22. I do firmly believe that the 22, which connects the Greyhound station on the southeast side of downtown to downtown Oklahoma City, could definitely benefit from nighttime service. I myself ran into that problem a few weeks ago. Also, I want to double down on everything the previous speakers have said regarding the Sunday service. This is huge for Oklahoma City. I know it hasn't had any sort of Sunday bus service in a number of years, ever since the Embark Link had to be dropped due to previous budgetary constraints. So thank you again, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Can I say, this has been a long road, but I would say, just as a word of caution, I think that we still will have one of the largest discrepancies in level of service between rail and bus in the country. I think if we hadn't done this and done Sunday bus service, I think a Title VI lawsuit against the city would have been a slam dunk. I think it's a much greater level of discrepancy in level of service than you saw in Atlanta and Los Angeles in their Title VI lawsuits. So we approved $4 million for the streetcar. I'm glad that we're no longer the largest city in America without Sunday bus service, but just a word of caution, we cannot continue to have that level of discrepancy in level of service between streetcar riders who are generally wealthier and of one ethnicity and bus riders who are generally of different ethnicities and different socioeconomic classes. You can't have 12-minute frequencies on rail and once an hour on bus. You can't run it, 13 hours a day on the streetcar and once an hour on the bus. You can't have beautiful Taj Mahal streetcar stops that protect your transit riders from all the weather elements in Oklahoma City, and then have your bus riders sitting on 2x4s that are 40 years old, uneven, and have splinters in them, and don't protect the rider in any fashion and do not treat them with the dignity they deserve. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other citizens to be heard under this public hearing section? Okay. We do have, before we consider a resolution adopting the budget, we do have an amendment that was first brought to our attention last week by Councilman Stonecipher. Councilman?
Thank you, Your Honor. This position, I'm really excited about it because, and I think I speak on behalf of everybody on the Judiciary Committee, the last 3 years we've worked really hard to make some improvements in the court system to be more fair, to be more efficient. And with this addition, I believe we will be more cost efficient. And so I think this is a win-win for the city. It's worked so far with our first coordinator, and I'm hopeful that with the second it'll be even much better. So I'd move the amendment for approval.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. Now we're on item 9F3, resolution adopting the fiscal year 2019 annual budget, establishing revenue and expenditure budgets for all city departments. We've got a motion. We've got a second. Is there any discussion from members of the council? I would just it's probably the last chance to commend you and your team and gosh, so many different departments and even boards and commissions involved in all that this requires. It looks easy here today, perhaps, but I know that we all know that countless hours went into the creation of this budget, and it was fairly seamless, and that's a testament to great budget work over many years, but also the voters' confidence in our city's abilities last September that made a lot of this possible as well. And Sunday bus service, the development services liaison, all the new police and fire positions, and of course all the MAPS 3 and streets projects that are in this budget. It's a pretty monumental achievement and is worth noting.
Thank you for your comments. One of the things I think we've tried to do as a council, and the staff's tried to reflect the council's desire to do that, is respond to the citizens' needs from the citizen survey. And amongst the GO package we did last year, the quarter-cent sales tax, and what we're able to accomplish in this budget, we're not getting everything done, but we're sure taking some positive steps toward that end. So thank you.
Great. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll cast our votes on the budget resolution. Passes unanimously. All right. Moving on to item 9G1. This is going to be it's being introduced today, a resolution set for final hearing on June 19th regarding appropriations for the fire department. And I believe we will begin with a public hearing and a presentation from Doug.
Right. We have two resolutions and public hearings on today. We have a 3/4-cent sales tax that was passed in the late 80s. And for public safety, half of that goes to police, half of that goes to fire. And as a part of that, each year we present a resolution to clearly state what those funds are going to be used for. And so that's a two-meeting process to do that, public hearings both times. So it'll be introduced today, hopefully adopted in 2 weeks, one for police, one for fire, and Doug is here to highlight those resolutions for us.
And Doug, you'll be speaking on both item G and H,
right? It's pretty much, it's really, they're very similar items. With the budget that you just adopted, we set the total budget for police and fire sales tax, that 3/4-cent sales tax that Mr. Couch mentioned. As during the early 90s, there was a journal entry of judgment. There was some ambiguity about how some of the sales tax should be implemented. This journal entry of judgment clarified how that would be handled. And one of the aspects of that is we have to clearly state this is how council and the city intend to spend each of those dollars in that police and fire sales tax. And so what you see before you for both police and for fire is a list of projects that they intend to undertake in the coming year, that they'll use that $46 million in their sales tax funds and what they will fund. And so you'll see for police, I guess we have fire first. Fire is 202 uniform positions, as well as some equipment. There'll be some civilian positions, advanced life support. They're helping with helping supplement the GO bonds with construction of a couple of fire stations, also doing some facility repairs, and some funds for overages so that they can bring in recruits earlier, get them started before the vacancies actually appear, and can have those guys ready to go as soon as those vacancies open up. And so similarly, on the police side, it funds 219 uniform positions. There are a number of civilian positions as well. They're doing some capital. They also have an overage recruit program, again, so they can get guys started before they have vacancies, and several other things. We'd be happy to answer any questions, or we can also have the police and fire chief can probably go into more detail about some of the specifics of the activity that they're undertaking if you have specific questions there. As part of the journal entry of judgment, not only does council approve these projects that they expect fire and police to undertake, is then we will do an audit of everything that was spent. So when we finish up this fiscal year, we'll begin doing a compilation of everything that was spent in the fire and police sales tax. Our city auditor's office reviews that, and we'll bring back a report to you that shows where we did, or if for some reason we didn't comply with what was laid out here, we'll identify each of those things. We haven't had any issues in the past. We don't expect any, but every year we check on it to make sure we did things as we told you we would. So, be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Doug? Okay. Thank you, Doug. As this is a public hearing for item 9G1, are there any people from the audience who wish to speak? Seeing none, we have item 9G2, the resolution to be introduced. This does require a motion and vote. Is there?
Move the item.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on it? Seeing none, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. That'll bring us to item 9H1, the public hearing for the resolution regarding police, which Doug just briefed on. Are there any citizens who wish to be heard in regards to this under the public hearing? Seeing none, we've got a motion and a second on item 9H2, the resolution which is being introduced today, set for final hearing on June 19th. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. That takes us to 9I, resolution adopting and amending the Comprehensive Code of Conduct, Ethics, and Fraud Intolerance Policy for the city, effective date of June 5th, and I believe we have the city auditor, Jim Williamson, here to make a presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. The ethics policy was originally adopted by the City Council in 2006 to promote an ethical culture and amplify the code of conduct that's in the city's personnel policies. Now, the ethics policies are a really user-friendly document. It explains why the code of conduct policies are in place and provides examples of the kinds of ethical situations that can arise in the workplace. The ethics policy also establishes the ethics hotline, which is administered out of the city auditor's office. That provides employees with an anonymous means of reporting suspected fraudulent behavior. The policy also establishes the ethics committee. That committee's been meets to discuss ethical concerns, provide guidance, and answer questions that arise from the department. The Ethics Committee is comprised of representatives from the Municipal Counselor's Office, the City Manager's Office, the Personnel Department, and the City Auditor's Office. The personnel policies, including the Code of Conduct, were last revised in 2017. And that prompted the Ethics Committee to update the ethics policy to maintain consistency with the Code of Conduct. Now, the major changes to the ethics policy are clarifying allowable secondary employment for part-time and full-time employees, bringing the policy into alignment with state statutes that govern city employees doing business with the city, expanding on guidance to employees to identify and address potential conflicts of interest, expanding on policies governing social media, and reinforcing policies regarding the access, use, and disclosure of confidential information. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about the policy.
Any questions for the city auditor? Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adopt the policy? Second. We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. Now we have item 9J, resolution approving the revision of Police Policy 556 regarding department-utilized vehicles and equipment. I believe we have a presentation from the police chief.
Yeah, Council, this is a change in policy. Basically, it redefines what a city-owned vehicle is. Before, we just had it as when the city had purchased it, we had to include one where we also lease vehicles. We do lease them. We want to hold officers responsible for how those are used. The other big part of it is equipment that's left in vehicles. It defines any city firearm that can't be left in a city-owned vehicle while off duty. A city or personal firearm can't be left in a city-owned vehicle while off duty. And it also defines other equipment that's city-owned equipment can't be left in any vehicle, personal or city-owned, while off duty. So we ran into some problems with that. So basically, it just defines what you can and can't leave in your vehicle and redefines what a city vehicle actually is.
Okay. Any questions for the police chief? All right, we've got a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Now we have item 9K, resolution adopting our emergency operations plan. City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, this is the annual adoption of our emergency operation plan. It's just some minor updates this year, and so we'd ask for approval.
Okay, any questions on that? Any discussion? Any motions? Got a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. which brings us to item 9L, resolution authorizing and directing the municipal councilor to negotiate a legal service contract on behalf of the city for the purpose of filing litigation in response to the opioid epidemic. And we do have some citizens to be heard, so we might start there. We've got Connie Schlittler. Hi, Connie. If you wouldn't mind coming forward and stating your name and address.
Connie Schlittler, Executive Director of OKC Metro Alliance, that includes First Step and the PIA, and I reside at 3608 Chickasaw Drive, Edmond, Oklahoma. Thank you to the council and the city for all your support of our programs, as many others throughout the city, the Homeless Alliance, Social Services Grants, CIT officers, and the many things you do to support recovery in our community. Opioids are drugs with good benefits when you need them. Anyone who's had surgery or major dental work would agree, right? Unfortunately, because they are commonly prescribed, many people in our community are exposed to these powerful drugs. Addictions to opioids cut across all demographic groups, regardless of race or economic status. I'm sure many of you know stories of people who have been entrapped in these drugs. Addiction and even non-prescription use can have unintended and devastating consequences for individuals and their families, including crime, incarceration, but worse, most seriously, premature death. Our Attorney General Mike Hunter reported that more people died from opioid overdose in the U.S. last year than died in the Vietnam War. That's why we're calling it an epidemic. It's hard to get my head around that number. That's why addressing access is important. Reducing access is a good prevention method. It's easy for people to get these drugs for non-medical reasons. We also need to address access to addiction treatment and recovery services for people who need them. We're really losing a generation. Austin Box was an OU football player who died of an overdose of opioids. His mother toured First Step last year. As we walked around the facility, she said, "I wish Austin would have had the opportunity to come to this program." But she did not know about his addiction before his death. Our reason for existing is really to save lives. I'm talking about our agency, but I know that you guys feel the same way, and also to reunite families. Whatever the council does that supports that effort, I support, and thank you for giving me this opportunity today.
Thank you, Connie. Courtney Hamilton. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address.
It was actually super early, and I wrote my address incorrect. I just moved last weekend, so it's 11713 Ashford Drive, Yukon, Oklahoma, 73099.
Okay.
But Courtney Hamilton, I'd just like to double down on what Connie had mentioned earlier. I just graduated from OU in social work with a master's and was interning with Metro Alliance this past semester. And I'd just like to speak really to two key impacts of addiction, and that's the family impact and the financial impact. Today, it's estimated that approximately 482 Oklahomans are going to be calling at addiction treatment centers across the state asking for an open bed. These people will be calling every day for weeks on end trying to get in to address their addictions that, just like many college students, they did a line of Coke or took a drink, like many of us have, if you're going to be honest with yourselves, and the impact it had on them was just different than a lot of us. Incarceration and death rates have increased nationally, annually across the nation, and Oklahoma is included in that. The Vera Institute of Justice has reported that 4 of the top 10 felony charges and 6 of the top 10 misdemeanor charges in the state of Oklahoma have been affiliated with addiction and substance abuse or just use in general. Also, as many of you probably know, Oklahoma has the highest rate of incarceration among women, comprising 27% of Oklahoma County's jail admissions, which is nearly double the rate nationally. And we did a study back in early May. We asked all of our men at First Step what kinds of charges they were facing, what time and fines they were up against if they were unable to beat their court cases. And they reported out of the 61 clients, there were 32 men that faced a combined 299 years up to life imprisonment and up to $541,000 in fines. And a lot of this is due to opioid addiction. And beyond just these men and women that are affected, we also have 84 children whose fathers at First Step are impacted and could be impacted further if they are incarcerated or face what many say is either jails, institutions, or death. And like Connie said, I would also be fully supportive of whatever the council decides to do to try to affect the change that's needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Berry.
Name and address, is that what you need? Sarah Berry, I live at 7249 Skylark Court. I am a member of the Wellness Now Mental Health and Addiction Recovery Work Group, along with the other two ladies sitting back there with me that are going to speak today. But the reason for our involvement in this group is because of the impact that drugs and alcohol have had on the lives of our friends and family members and many people that we love. Specifically, today I will share about the wreckage that opioids have had because of my ex-husband's progressive struggles with addiction. It led to the dissolution of my marriage when my daughter was 5. As his addiction continued to progress, it resulted in him stealing a prescription pad to get access to the medicines that he had become dependent upon. Subsequent to our divorce, his involvement in criminal activities continued to increase as his addiction spiraled out of control. And when my daughter was in middle school, it resulted in him being sent to prison. So what did this mean for our family, and what does this mean for her? He was unable to be a consistent father to her, both emotionally, physically, and financially. He did not take her to school, not one day of her whole entire life, because he was never able to stay sober long enough to be able to drive or have her unsupervised. He was not able to take her to her after-school activities, and he was not able to consistently provide any amount of child support. That creates inequities for her with her peers as far as the things that we are able to afford to do. It also resulted in middle school when she shared this, that he had gone to prison with one friend because she was embarrassed and humiliated. The friend broke her confidence, and so she experienced humiliation and shame from her peers because her dad was in prison. She was in a school where, that was not an experience common to her. What I know this means for her is these things, her genetics combined with her experience sets her up to have these same problems. And it all began when he was 14. He played sports. He was a, good kid, played sports and had an injury, and when he took these medications, it had a response in him that's very different. I was given these medications for an injury, and they made me sick. It made me want to puke and made me want to crawl out of my skin. That's not the way they impacted him. As a result, it set him off on a lifelong cycle called chasing the scream or whatever, where he would continue to have issues with trying to get these medications. I'm not suggesting that we eradicate pain medications. We definitely need them when we are in pain, but they are given way too freely. He was able to get them very easily, and he was not able to come off them very easily. And not giving, what we need to do is to be more responsible by not giving them these medications so freely. Patients should be screened for a history of addiction or family histories of addiction. We need to provide proper education to people before we give them these medications and let them know that these can be dangerous and what are the risk factors for addiction. And most importantly, we need to provide people with access, information and access on how they can, if they find that they have become addicted, how they can get help so that they can come off them safely. If you have not read the book Dreamland by Sam Quinones, I would suggest, actually I would implore that you do so. It tells the story of how this opioid epidemic has played out in Ohio, but Oklahoma City is not far behind as we have cracked down on the legal access to these medications without providing people with care and treatment resources to come off of them. What is happening in other cities is happening here, and people are starting to go to the streets and get heroin to prevent from going into withdrawals, and that leads to more deaths from overdose, and also leads to increased crime. So as we're closing down access to these medications, we need to be acting responsibly and educating people that if they have become dependent, that what it is that they can do to get help so that they can safely come off of these medications. And that is what I think that we are failing by not taking responsible action. If you do read the book Dreamland, you will learn that the pharmaceutical companies misrepresented the dangerousness of these products to their physicians, to the physicians that they were training, who in turn failed to adequately provide responsible care to patients by educating them about the risk for becoming dependent upon these medicines. And we need to make some significant changes going forward. We have a mess to clean up, and there will be a cost to that. So I would request that we vote yes to join in the suit or whatever we need to do to get some funding so that we can provide people some access to some resources. Some of the cities and states are doing a 1-cent sales tax per pill, but we're going to have some resources that we don't currently have.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, Chauncey Barnes. And if when you come to the mic, say your name and address, and if you'd keep your remarks below 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chauncey Barnes. I live at 14300 North May Avenue, apartment 15202, 73134. The opioid epidemic is a crisis here in the state of Oklahoma. Opioids are the most common class of drugs involved in overdose deaths in Oklahoma. That results in there are more deaths than there are motor vehicle deaths. It is growing darker along with soaring death toll rates. As an Oklahoma resident, I am not okay with this. We can do better. The horrific epidemic of opioid abuse is taking innocent lives and destroying families. I have lived the last 30 years of my life without a father because of his addiction to opioids. It all started with back pain with my father. That then led to getting a prescription from painkillers, which then led to him misusing them. Eventually, he was in a full-blown addiction. One day, he took too much and overdosed, leaving behind his wife, 1-year-old daughter, and a 10-year-old son. That changed the trajectory of our lives forever. I was raised in a single-parent home. Much of my childhood was defined by dysfunction and trauma. My father's addiction to opioids took away sweet moments of my childhood that some might think that are just simple, like daddy-daughter dances, donuts with dads, and just having a father figure in my life. Instead, I grew up fast and went through battles of my own, like breaking the chains of generational addiction cycles. I'm not here to have people feel bad about me, about my story, and my story really isn't uncommon or special. Unfortunately, this is happening a lot around America, and especially in the state of Oklahoma. Bottom line is that pharma companies have held fuel to this epidemic, and if nothing gets done, the problem will only worsen. Tens and thousands of more people will die each year. While pharma companies make billions at the cost of innocent lives, pharma companies need to be held responsible, and Oklahoma needs to be a part of the solution. I'm here today to raise awareness and hope that we will be more of a solution than the problem. Thank you for your opportunity on speaking on behalf of this epidemic.
Thank you. Lacey Callahan. Lacey, if you'd state your name and address and keep your remarks below 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Lacey Callahan. I reside at 3125 Greenwood Court, Norman, Oklahoma, 73072. I am here also to show my support of the litigation that we're talking about in pursuit of ending the opioid epidemic. This type of litigation is just one of many spokes in the wheel. There's plenty of blame to go around in this problem, but certainly this is a key piece of it in decreasing access to dangerous opioids. I am a grateful recovering opiate addict myself. And there is just such a stigma associated with opioid disorders, and I can testify to the fact that this type of addiction disorder does not discriminate. I was injured and I was prescribed an opiate for the first time when I was 26 years old. There was absolutely no discussion at that point of the addictive nature of opioids, and it was that way by design. The pharmaceutical companies commissioned studies that educated doctors and physicians on treating pain as a fifth vital sign, in other words, a key indicator of health and overall wellness, and it sort of became this culture in this country that no one should have any type of pain whatsoever. And while opioids certainly have a place in treating pain, for me, I know, and I don't know if this would have changed the course of my disease, but I know that if the options had been discussed with me, there might have been a different turnout. The other key piece of this, as some of the other ladies have mentioned, is increasing access to treatment resources. If it weren't for state-funded treatment resources, I would not have been able to access treatment. And I consider myself one of the lucky ones who's been able to rebuild their lives through navigating the, complex criminal justice system. And I've had to rebuild my life, and so I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to escape personal accountability in recovery from opioids, but there are certainly some ways that we can address this in our community, and this type of litigation is one of those ways. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. That concludes the citizens who've signed up to speak about item 9L. Are there any motions or comments from council?
Mayor, I would just like to say real quickly that this is something that is very personable to me, or very personal to me, and I appreciate everyone coming down here and sharing their stories. And I appreciate what a lot of y'all do every day to help with these type of issues. I hope that we adopt this resolution just as a sign that we're willing to join the fight along with other states, other counties, other cities against this epidemic, because it is huge. So that was all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Greenwell?
Yes. Could I ask Ms. Schlittler to come back up just for some clarification? So, Ms. Schlittler, you indicated that when they're properly used, the opioids are an important prescription, and reducing access to them is probably the key that we should be focusing on. What we're about to vote on is to participate in a lawsuit against the manufacturers and distributors, not against the physicians themselves.
Right.
I think, our efforts should be directed towards those, because it's not the manufacturers who are providing direct access to the users. There's a group in between the manufacturer and the prescriber. And that's where our efforts should be focused on, is at the doctors. But this lawsuit specifically pulls the physicians out as far as being defendants initially on this. So, and increasing access to treatment after the addiction begins, I certainly agree. And I want to say this too, I understand the significance of this problem, the pain and suffering that the users and the family members encounter. I just think we need to focus on, one, the Oklahoma Medical Board for not taking actions against the physicians who I think can be identified, and then secondly, not taking actions against the physicians themselves. And I'd appreciate your comments.
I think that's why, in terms of my position, I really leave it to council to decide what the best approach is to limit access. Unlike Sarah and the group of ladies that spoke, obviously they know a lot about, the pharmaceutical industry's role. I do not. All I know is I see the effect of people getting prescriptions that really don't need them. And so that's what I decided to kind of limit my comments to, and really leave that, obviously, to your legal counsel and kind of your decision-making in terms of what is a good way to limit access.
Well, can I ask you another question? An analogy with respect to alcohol, for example. Certainly, we all agree that alcohol can create problems, especially for individuals that have the characteristics to become addicted to alcohol. But yet we don't pursue the distillers or the wholesalers of alcohol to remedy that. I do like the idea that was presented that we would tax the prescriptions themselves to provide additional treatment for this. So I appreciate your time in coming.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have some thoughts, David, as to your questions, and this is, as a physician who treats chronic pain patients and as a city councilor and somebody who's in recovery from addiction myself, this is by far the most important public policy issue for me personally that I've discussed in the last 7 years. And I think the opiate epidemic is a smaller subset of a bigger issue, which is basically addiction, that has three components. One is that 10% of the population, cutting across all demographics, teachers, doctors, lawyers, city councilors, department heads, all of our 4,000 employees, about 10% of the population is going to suffer from chemical dependency, whether it's opiates or anything else. Prescriptions for sedatives, tranquilizers, stimulants far outnumber opiates, so it's not just opiates. Second is that manufacturers and distributors, doctors and nurse practitioners who can write these prescriptions and aren't under the purview of the medical board, knowing this, have exploited this for financial gain. And then third, the crisis is worsened with inadequate treatment. I was involved in an incident a couple days ago that I think encapsulates a lot of this. I was driving with a healthcare provider. If they were involved in your healthcare, I'm confident you all would love them. Great, top of their game. They're driving, I'm in the passenger seat, we're getting ready to get on the highway, 75-mile-an-hour speed limit, and they have a grand mal seizure. And after I deal with the blood coming from the mouth from biting through the tongue and the losing the bladder control and the minute to 2 minutes of violent muscular contractions, we get to safety and then get to the emergency room. And I find out that even though she has a history of addiction, that a Dr. David Calanzani, who's a psychiatrist at Mercy, has been prescribing her a combination of Xanax, which is a benzodiazepine, and Adderall, which is a stimulant, so they're kind of opposite effects, and then some Ambien just for effect. And so we get her to safety, and now them to safety, and now they're on their way to a treatment. I made my complaint to the medical board about Dr. David Calanzani yesterday to the medical board. I want him to know that I and others in the recovery community are coming after him. I don't think he can justify his medical treatment as a standard of care. It's malpractice, in my opinion. He put my and other people's lives at danger. And that's what we need to do, what you're saying, David. We need to send a message, and we need to go after those who are not practicing medicine appropriately. The medical board will respond. They just took away the license from a Dr. Exxon, who's writing 16 milligrams of Xanax a day for patients, and unapologetic. They took his license. And now I'd ask that Dr. David Calanzani lose his license. And I'd ask the media a favor, if you could call Dr. David Calanzani at 751-2600 and let him know that a city councilor publicly called him out for not practicing the standard of care, and let him know that we're coming after him, and his life is about to change. The issue then is bigger than opiates. I mean, all that example doesn't involve opiates at all, but you have all kinds of nurse practitioners. But opiates, obviously, for the reasons that the speakers talked about, is a crisis. And the reason that we go after the manufacturers and distributors is that they knew the addictive potential, but they basically lied to the FDA, they lied to the doctors, and then what they engaged in was just basically bribery of physicians. And just in the last few days, you've had a sales rep from a company called Insys that makes synthetic fentanyl. And this one sales rep has admitted to giving $1.7 million, this is one sales rep just in New Jersey in a 2-year period to doctors, $1.7 million for bogus speaker fees, conferences. It's basically bribery. Then you had another doctor in Florida that just pleaded guilty. The same fentanyl is basically, all of these opiates act on the same pain receptor in the brain. Fentanyl is 100 times more potent than morphine. So he admits guilt to taking $500,000 in bribes from Insys Corporation. You had one, Purdue Pharmaceuticals, that is a family-owned private company that captured a third of the pain market with basically bribing physicians. And the physicians took the bribes and then prescribed knowing the addictive patient. Once it became clear that people could crush the medicine and snort it and inject it, and that we had this, they continued to prescribe it because they were on the payroll, sometimes as much as $12,000 a month. So the other thing is that, and anyone who's on opiates should know this, is that opiates, when you use them for more than 6 months, they're designed to be, really these are approved for people with less than 6 months of life expectancy. Because if you use them for more than that, they change these pain receptors in your brain. So they actually make you more sensitive to pain. So things that would hurt, that are noxious stimuli, you hurt more, which then causes the primary care physician and the nurse practitioner to write more of the opiate. And then they develop it, so you just dump gas on the fire. So I have patients that have back pain, and their primary care loads them up with fentanyl and all these things. And I try and start an IV, and it's like you're stabbing him in the knife with a hand. You're stabbing him in the hand with a knife. To them, it's real, but it's the opiate that's causing the pain. And everybody who's on opiates more than 6 months should understand that opiates paradoxically increases your pain over time. And the manufacturers knew that and didn't disclose that to anyone. And the doctors, I believe that human beings are neither smart enough and or ethical enough to be doctors. They just are not intellectually curious enough to read the literature that says you should never treat back pain, degenerative disc disease, and things like that with opiates long term. They're not intellectually curious, and when they are, they take the money anyway, and they don't act within the standard of care. Then in Oklahoma, very specifically, in Oklahoma City, you had physicians that created these urine drug screen labs. And so they said, oh, well, we're writing prescriptions, and sometimes people take recreational drugs, so we need to do urine drug screens. That's the standard of care. But they created labs that they had ownership in, that instead of $100, $200, they would recruit a rural hospital in rural Oklahoma, and because they could bill more if it's a hospital, and then they would charge $1,000 to $2,000 per patient for the urine drug screen plus the office visit. And so then you have this person comes in every 30 days, you write them their Xanax or their Adderall or their opiate, and you're making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So this is what has happened in Oklahoma City and Oklahoma, and I agree with you, David, it's the medical community that needs to be held to task. The Attorney General has, and they've caught on to the urine drug screen scam and fraud, and they have cracked down on that. And I will say things are getting better. All 50 states, you can now have physician monitoring programs, so you can see which physician has written what prescriptions and at what pharmacy, so you can't have patients double dipping like you did. The younger doctors are better trained than some of our older doctors. It's getting better slowly, and this is one step that we're taking today. One last comment on our family of city employees. We have 4,000 employees for easy math, right? 10% of the population is going to have chemical dependency. So that's 400 people. There's a really important article in Psychology Today in March that talks about addiction in police officers. And if you care about police officers, which I know that we all do, that's a good read. And it talks about that police officers basically have double or triple the addiction rate of the general population. So it's 20 to 30% nationwide of police officers. It's 1 in 4 police officers that have drug and alcohol abuse. 1 in 4 police officers will have suicidal ideation some point in their career, and 20 to 30% of police officers suffer from chemical dependency. And then you take, say, 10% of our other, we're looking at like 600 people, 400 to 600 people in the city of Oklahoma City that suffer from chemical dependency. So what do we do, right? Because part of the frustration for everyone is that we just don't want to deal with this because treatment doesn't work, right? And so people, they have problems like the one I described to you in the beginning over and over and over. Everybody gets tired. You don't want to deal with it. What do we do? I mean, the success rate for somebody going to treatment for 30 days for opiates is about 5%. 5%. So for 5 years. So 95% are going to fail. So of our hundreds of city employees that go to treatment, 95% are going to fail and will not stay sober for 5 years. So I'd ask, and all this has to be negotiated with the unions, and any kind of change in policy for the city would, have to be negotiated. But I just want to get it on something on everybody's radar. I'm a product of the Physicians Recovery Program, which we are the envy of a lot of cities in America. It's a real success story. We have a higher success rate. We and the airline pilots are in a league of our own, right? Our success rate, but even we who have sky-high success rates compared to everybody else, we're like 70 to 75%. But that's considered amazing. There are 2 things that make physicians and airline pilots have that kind of, 15 times the success rate of everybody else. One is that you don't go to treatment for 30 days. You go to treatment for a minimum of 90 days. If you're a physician in Oklahoma City and you have a chemical dependency issue and you want to continue to practice medicine, there is no 30-day program in America that you can go to. Not Betty Ford Center, not the Meadows, nowhere can you go to a 30-day program. Nowhere in the world. You have to go to a minimum of 90 days because we looked at physicians that went to 30-day programs and those that went to 90-day programs, and it was very clear it's unethical to do anything other than 90 days. Then the second thing that we did is that we had 5 years of monitoring and accountability afterwards. And so every morning you call and you have a color, red, blue, yellow, green, and if your colors comes up that day, you go do a random screen. And in my opinion, hair follicle tests are much better than urine screens, but they use urine screens. And so you wouldn't treat a diabetic, right, and for 30 days and then say, okay, you graduated and there's no follow-up, right, for the rest of your life. This is a chronic illness. So you do 90 days and then you have 5 years of follow-up. And that's, if we want to take care of our own, if we want to help these hundreds of employees who nobody wants to do any of this stuff on their own. It's all the leverage. Physicians have such a high success rate, and so do airline pilots, because there's leverage. They can't work unless they go do these things. And it's that leverage that would translate into higher success rates for city employees. And I appreciate you hearing me out. I know that's long, but it's important to me, and I appreciate you hearing me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments?
Well, yeah, we're not through with this debate. So I understand all that, and I sympathize with, again, those individuals who become addicted or their family members. I recognize the severe importance. I mean, I've known a lot of people who have become addicted to alcohol, and it's just as problematic. I get that. But we have a tendency in this country to, let's just file a lawsuit. You know, it can't be our problem. I mean, we can't be at fault. It must be somebody else who's at fault with this. And so we direct it to the manufacturers or the distributors because we know they either have a large amount of resources or a large amount of insurance to cover these things. All we're interested is getting money. The state has already filed suit. Why isn't that sufficient to let them pursue that? And then we take an alternative course. We put our focus on the physicians and the medical board for failing to properly supervise physicians. I say that because I serve on the Oklahoma Accountancy Board, and we monitor CPAs throughout the state. We even look when we feel like a CPA has used poor judgment. We have peer reviews. We require CPAs to have other CPA firms come in and review their practices and procedures and even get to the point of reviewing their work papers. We want to make sure the public is being treated fairly when it comes to services provided by CPAs. Again, we'll pursue accountants who use poor judgment, who actually do some fraudulent or illegal activities. We're out to maintain a high level of perception as far as the quality and ethics of our profession. I'm questioning whether or not the Oklahoma Medical Board has done the same amount of effort to monitor its members. And that's where we should put our attention. And just like you mentioned about people who go through a program whose occupation is at risk, they tend to do better. Let's do those kinds of actions. You know, again, one, the state is filing a lawsuit against the manufacturers and distributors. We, as citizens of Oklahoma, will ultimately receive the benefit of that effort by us participating in it on the same lawsuit. I don't know what we're gaining other than providing some substantial fees for the attorneys who would be representing us in this class action lawsuit. I mean, at this point, it's obvious it's just free money. And if we want to participate in getting some of that free money, let's go forward. But I think our actions could be better served by pursuing another group of defendants.
Councilman McAtee?
I don't want to get into a debate, but I do want to piggyback on what David said. We have 4,500 roughly employees. We are really concerned about their health and their welfare, their children's health and welfare, their futures. I think an action that we should be taking is to direct our Human Resources Department to attack this problem holistically as to what can we effectively do and not chase a dollar by a lawsuit. Thank you, Your Honor.
If I could, go ahead, Todd. No, go ahead.
Larry, could you restate what you said? I didn't hear the end of it. I'm sorry. What did you say? I couldn't hear you.
I'll give you the speech again real quick, the Reader's Digest version. We have these employees whose lives we're concerned about, their families, their children, their heritage, the legacy they leave. Rather than go after this lawsuit, I think we should direct our Human Resources Department to come back to us with a holistic plan of what can we do to help our employees have a better quality of life. And I don't think that is involved in just having a lawsuit after manufacturers and distributors.
I guess the question I'd have, and I'd like to hear from Wiley, is as far as the state versus the city pursuing it, what is the difference? Is it the city has access, we will have access to funds that we can spend as we see fit, or will those funds come to us through the state action? I'm just not familiar enough with how the state action through the Attorney General's office would benefit the city.
This is Wiley Williams from the Municipal Counselor's Office.
There's a state statute that regulates what the AG can spend money that it collects from this judgment, and it does not include distributing those funds to the municipalities and counties. It's the same thing that happened with the tobacco settlement. they weren't able to distribute those funds to, like, the city of Oklahoma City or any other community. So that issue still exists. We would do better with joining litigation with the multi-district litigation in federal court, because those funds will be distributed to each of the municipalities in some form.
Educate me on with the tobacco settlement. That money, none of that was earmarked for Oklahoma City, correct?
That's correct.
And that money then went to a trust of some sort that oversaw the distribution of those funds?
Yes.
And have we ever had any say-so whatsoever in how we could help or have some of those funds, or have we received any of those funds as a city to help our employees?
I have not, I'm not aware that we've ever asked for them or that we're entitled to them.
I just want to talking about our employees, I just want to talk about how the process works. If an employee needs chemical dependency treatment, or if their doctor decides they do, it goes to the Employee Assistance Program, and they independently, we're not involved at all. The Employment Assistance Program decides what length of treatment, whether it's outpatient, inpatient, where they go, and we have no say in it. We don't even know. If they just turn in FMLA papers, we don't even know necessarily that they went to treatment. So this Employee Assistance Program is deciding where to send them. The problem is, these 90-day programs, long-term inpatient, it doesn't exist in Oklahoma City. We're the 37th largest market, whatever. We're in the top 40 cities. We have no long-term inpatient treatment for chemical dependency here. That's our Achilles heel, that's our problem. I mean, I'm trying to scramble to help this person I told you about in the beginning. I mean, the facilities are not there. And so to create a fund, yes, of course, we're identifying somebody who engaged in unethical behavior, and we're asking them to pay for part of it, the manufacturers and distributors. They are not the only party, and they're not the only party that we should go after. But it is a source of funds that the city could then utilize to bolster our anemic, almost non-existent treatment facilities. It is a real problem for Oklahoma City that a lot of these facilities don't even exist. Where our employees, if you have 600, there's no place for them to go. They have to go out of state, oftentimes.
So, Ed, we're not going to get into the rehab business. The city of Oklahoma City will not go out and build a rehabilitation center to begin treating.
No, but you can provide assistance to some of the entities that exist, and they can maybe, I mean, you can, if you have a source of funds, you can expand services even among the ones that already exist.
Councilwoman Salyer would like to speak.
Okay, I think it's clear that we've identified that this is an extremely complex problem that involves insurance companies who won't pay for 90 days of treatment, we don't have facilities. But if I could just maybe add a little bright news, we know we do have some facilities coming. Integris and Dr. Krishna and Kelly Fry have worked for years to bring us Arcadia Trails, which is coming and will provide excellent treatment. Chad Richardson is working, you mentioned the Meadows, is working on bringing the Meadows to Oklahoma City. I mean, I think people in this community, First Step is doing amazing work. People have identified that we have a tremendous need and don't have the beds and don't have the facilities and are really beginning to focus on that. I don't disagree that, we've got an issue with doctors overprescribing, but I do agree that there is substantive research that does show that the pharmaceutical companies were aware of the issue and really kept it hidden for a very long time. And, if we can figure out a way to provide treatment to those people that desperately need it. I'm not a fan of litigation, David. It's not I don't like running to the courthouse, but I sure think we need some dollars to expand the kind of treatment that we provide so that our kids and our families don't have to go out of state, don't have to go someplace else, and can receive that treatment here. So that would be my perspective.
I would like clarification as to what, should we be successful in this lawsuit, what the proceeds, if we were to get any, were to be used for. Would it be strictly on City of Oklahoma City employees?
No, I think it'd be up to the council's.
It would be a policy decision. Councilman Stonecipher.
I agree with David, and I agree with Larry that there are other options out there. For too long, we have ignored mental health issues, addiction issues throughout this state. And for us to spend 45 minutes today and make some decision like this, in my mind, is premature. I think we need to look and see if there's other options like Larry suggested, like David suggested, and think about this before we do anything. And I think we need to be clear on if the state gets money, will that benefit people in Oklahoma City? If we get money, will that benefit our employees and people in Oklahoma City? This is a very, very complex issue, and it deserves more attention than 45 minutes on the horseshoe. And I'd move to defer this action at least until our next meeting.
I'll second that, because I think the person I haven't disagreed with anything that's been said, but I still don't really know the right way to vote on this. So.
Well, and I was going to say, like Councilman Greenwell, I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of what you say, and Councilman McAtee, I agree with everything you say. I see this as a step, a spoke in the wheel, an action that needs to be taken along with those other actions. Just like Big Tobacco, where they were claiming, hey, it's not addictive, and at the same time, they're working to make it even more addictive. Why? Because it's a generator for them. This is the same thing for the pharmaceuticals, and it's not going to be a single lawsuit that does it or a TSET program like tobacco does or anything else. It takes a lot of public education, it takes a lot of dollars, it takes everything we can, I think, to throw at this issue, because it's not tobacco, and tobacco's bad, it's heroin. I mean, let's be fair. It's
Councilman
heroin.
Stone, okay, if as Councilman Stonecipher has suggested, we defer this for 2 weeks, in between now and 2 weeks, if we can get evidence that demonstrates that the manufacturers and the distributors knew of this problem and withheld information, and even, as Councilman Shadid suggested, in certain instances, paid out bribes and things like that, well, yeah, let's go pursue the bad guys. I've just not seen that evidence. Now, I've not studied it, but I'm just saying, if we're getting ready to enter into a lawsuit and we have decisions as to whether or not we go forward with it, let's see the evidence, and then proceed to pursue those bad guys. As long as we agree as a council that we won't stop with them. That's the easy money. The harder efforts will be pursuing the individual physicians and the Oklahoma Medical Board. And do we have the will to do that?
So we have a motion and a second for a deferral. That is the only motion on the floor right now. Are there any comments or discussion about that?
Well, the only comment I would have is 2 weeks enough. Everybody's comfortable with that, and the potential that we may defer it when we talk about it next time. I want questions answered that David has asked, and I want to have evidence to support what we're doing.
I think the evidence is overwhelming. I mean, if you need to...
I just need to see it. That's all I'm asking.
Right, and I think 2 weeks is enough. I think you can be flooded with the evidence. I mean, and that's easy to provide you. It's very easy. It's in the news just in the last week. I mean, it's
Oh, wait. I've heard of all sorts of allegations. Yeah. I agree.
No, but now there's people from the company's plea bargaining and admitting that they gave $1.7 million in bribes.
The only motion on the table right now is a deferral.
Right. So what I'm saying is that we can provide that evidence in 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's overwhelming, I believe.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to it if I see that. I've just not seen it yet.
Okay.
Okay, so you were the original motion maker, correct? So you're comfortable with your 2-week motion, and we had a second. Is there any other discussion on the deferral motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll cast our votes. Passes unanimously. We'll defer that item to June 19th.
New York.
Okay, well, that brings us to 9M1, claims recommended for denial, and I believe item A there was withdrawn earlier by the city manager. Is there anyone here to speak to any of these items? I'm advised we do not need executive session. I'll entertain
I'd move the remaining items.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We are now at item 10. Item 10A1, claims recommended for approval.
I would move the items recommended for approval.
We've got a motion and a second. I am advised we do not need executive session. Is there anyone here to speak? Seeing none, seeing no discussion, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. And we are now at item 11, items from council. We'll start down here. Councilman Stoneside. Councilman Shadid, Councilman Griner, did you have anything to say under items from council? Okay. We will move on to city manager reports, item 12.
Nothing this morning?
Nothing. The item A under there is available online at the council agenda, claims and payroll. And we are now at citizens to be heard, item 13, and there are actually quite a few. And so we will go in the order we were received. I will advise everyone to state your name and address and keep to a 3-minute limit. And due to the fact that we have a major, rather important executive session following this, I am going to interrupt and hold you to that 3-minute limit today. And so first we'll start with David George Craig.
Hello. David George Craig, 4301 North Penn, apartment 242, Oklahoma City, 73112. I too am in recovery, 30 years. I was able to quit smoking through the TSET, took 3 times, but it was harder than going through OU College of Architecture. And the program that I was in there was interiors, and that included anything within a boundary. It also had an emphasis on the ADA. I have had some problems with Embark. I've had remarks made to me. I've asked them to kneel the bus, and they would not want to do that. And then I would also be getting off the bus. Last week, one driver told me, he said, actually, we only have to kneel a bus if you're physically disabled. And I told him that I would take that up with the city council that last week. Yesterday, I got on the bus. It was at 23rd and Penn. It was an outbound number 8. There was a statistician sitting in the ADA area. She was not only just sitting there, she was turned at this angle where she could carry on a conversation with the driver. She was taking up 1.5 seats. When I sat down next to her, it was bus 1705 at 4:30. It was outbound 8. She complained that she had worked 4 hours. 4 hours. That I was squishing her. That she could not do her job. And she wanted me to move. And I did not move. I persisted. I am not going to move for somebody like that. There are, other people that are disabled. They're the blind or sight impaired. Whenever I'm in that area and I see someone get on that bus, I know that I need to relinquish that area because that's for someone that's sight impaired, where she was. She wouldn't do that for them, I know. And I wasn't about to move. I also know that I would have to move if there was a wheelchair coming on because they have to lift the seat. Sometimes they'll have to lift the other seat. But I know that her job, and she said she was squished. I said I was squishing her. I said I always sat here. I insisted, and she just insisted, and I resisted. I refused to do it. I went on to say, I pay my fare and I pay my taxes, and that's it. So I stayed right there. I felt that this woman is way out of line. I've known her. I told her when she first went to work doing this as a statistician job, I said, you look like Brooke Shields. So when I mentioned that, she remembered me. The driver was not getting involved in this, and the driver knew why.
David,
I was right.
We're at the 3 minutes. Transit Director Jason Fairbrush is in the back row. And
Pardon me?
That is our Transit Director, Jason Fairbrush, and he would be happy to follow up with you. Thank you for coming down. A little hard to read. Is it Larry Finn?
I'm not Larry Finn, but Larry Finn left and left me a note to read it for him.
He's just one of the attorneys involved in.
Okay, well, I'm going to take that as part of you're Yassine, right?
Yes, I am.
Is Anthony here?
Yeah, Anthony is here, yes.
Is Anthony going to speak as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, we're going to you then, Yassine, and your 3 minutes starts right now.
Sure. I'm here to talk about one of the accidents. I talked about it last week because I only had short time. And this accident involved two fatally injured passengers, actually driver and passenger. Larry Finn, he's the client for the driver, and Mr. Anthony, he's for the passenger. This vehicle was picked up, and as I said, it was inspected by third parties deemed to be below the minimum safety standards. And I'm here, Dr. Shadid, he asked for examples like the other cities, what they have, because we don't have anything here yet. And I provided examples, but I didn't get any questions, I didn't get any debates, I didn't get anything. I've just been dealing with the police department, the legal department, I'm not getting anything back. And I just don't see any reason. This was going like for 2 years. We barely updated the ordinance for like a sentence. But now, next Monday, Tuesday, and keep going for the next 4 weeks, you're going to have the inspection for maybe 600-700 vehicle for hire, public transportation. And most of them, they're going to have a fraudulent mechanical inspection. And I don't see why the city does not take any action right now. And you're going to have inspection here that's going to have a home trailer, park address, business does not exist. And I don't see why the police department, they don't do any quick investigation and see if the inspection is real or not. So nothing is done so far, and I just see it as a great public safety concern, and no action was taken. I mean, at least I'd like the city to move on and do just like the other cities, just copy and paste what they have, because we don't have nothing of what the other cities they have. And I provided clear example as much as I could, and there was just, I have hundreds of examples, but I just provided 3 of them. And I wish, the city, what's happening right now, in the inspection form, we have a seal of Oklahoma City. And the city is delegating power to a third party. But the city does not know who's the third party, does not know if he is bonded, insured, has a city license, does have nothing. So anybody can sign this paper and leave. And that's what's happened. The person who's been signing, he has nothing, no assets, nothing. The lawyers are after this, and they found out that this person doesn't have anything. So he doesn't have any risk. He just sign anything and sell it on streets. And this is very wrong and shameful and kind of in Oklahoma City. Just I don't see it as right. That's all.
Okay.
It's very wrong.
Thank you. Anthony Alfonso? And if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address.
Anthony Alfonso, 20 Southwest 173rd Street, 73170. I'm an attorney with the Kane Law Office, and I'm here mostly to support Mr. Atawi's work that he's been doing to strengthen the certifications and the inspection process for our city's taxis. My firm, we represent a client who was a passenger in a cab that was involved in a motor vehicle accident. He suffered many severe injuries, including a traumatic brain injury. And during our preliminary investigation, we've determined that we believe that vehicle never should have been on the road in the first place. And this is becoming somewhat of a public safety issue, and it's our opinion that new policies and procedures need to be put into place, such as Mr. Atawi has attested to, that may make the vehicles on the road safer and not a danger to the public as a whole. That's all I have.
Thank you. Have you made any arrangements to meet with anyone, you and your client? I saw the police chief walk in. I know he's familiar with these issues. He briefed me recently on it. Did you walk in, Chief City, because you're willing to maybe visit with them a little bit this morning? Sure. All right. Sorry. Well, you walked in. So I think the police chief would be happy to visit with you a little bit this morning. Thank you for coming down. Okay. Tom, I know we have exchanged emails. That doesn't mean I know how to pronounce your last name. Tom Levesky? Levesky.
My name is Tom Levacy, and I live at 2505 Northwest 42nd Street, 73112 in Ward 2. I've heard it said safety regulations are written in blood. The same can be said about many of our municipal codes. How many of our municipal codes come out as a result of tragedy? Our public safety, fire, electric, health, building, property codes originate from lessons learned from tragedy. Tomorrow will mark the one-year anniversary that I appeared before this council to ask for relief from the two properties in the 2400 block of Northwest 42nd. I provided you photos of the conditions that persist as of last Saturday. During my comments last year, I pondered what would happen if these conditions went unremediated. I hope to provide you some context with that. With the passage of a full year, neighbors have continued to do what they've done more than 250 times for almost a decade. We've dutifully submitted our items to the Action Center for junk and debris, unlicensed businesses, property maintenance, inoperable vehicles, trailers parked in the street, inappropriate RV storage. However, the same vicious cycle continues. The junk is removed only to reappear within a few days. One RV is replaced with another. An inoperable vehicle is moved from one place to another. In the photos, you can note a rather large RV that can't be legally parked in the driveway is plugged in and moved between the two houses. I worry about the family that lives in that house. How would the fire department access between those two houses? Looking forward, I want to ask, why is this acceptable that this continues? One property owners erected a non-conforming stockade fence in their front yard to block the view. Why do we accept that? But why challenge it? We can understand exactly why. We've even seen deteriorating property upkeep spread to the other properties as they've begun to exhibit the same habits. The ongoing circumstances and frustration has caused animosity and anger among the neighbors, and that's illustrated on various social media sites one of my neighbors will speak about. I've received numerous emails, calls, messages, and visits from neighbors pleading for something to be done. Some of the homeowners have thrown up their hands and moved away, sold their houses to investors. The city stands by as investors who are not owner-occupants chase prices in this area to the floor. Why does the city accept this? When is the city going to take the steps necessary to arrest these declines and give the code enforcement folks the tools they need? In closing, I would like to say, why is it that my neighbors and I must watch the safety and security of our neighborhood and the value of our homes decay as the junk and debris that litters these properties does? Please consider, what would you do if these were in your neighborhood? What would you do? All we are asking is for you to do the same for ours. And with that, I thank you for your time yet again, and would be happy to answer any questions.
So let me say what I personally wouldn't tolerate it. We don't expect you to. The city has issued multiple citations. My understanding is there's a warrant, or maybe two warrants, for this individual's arrest because of their failure to comply with our year-long efforts. So we do not, and I want you to know that we do not accept this behavior. And I believe there are currently two warrants for his arrest because of this. What we might do, I mean, the only other thing we could potentially do is refer this to district court and try and get an injunction, and then he would be in contempt of court. In addition to, that would involve, another branch of government besides just the city. Is that?
Yes, we could go to district court for an injunction and abatement of a public nuisance, and the district judge could authorize us to go on there on an ongoing basis and remove the property, place liens on his property to recover our costs. So, I mean, we can do that and go to district court, and it will take a few months because there are time periods built in for people to file answers and all that. But yeah, that's definitely a possible remedy.
And how would we do a resolution from the city council?
Yes, we would put on a resolution for you to authorize us to go to district court to abate the nuisance.
And is there any argument that this property is abandoned, no one's there, and we could demolish it? Take some step
I think he's there.
There's a family that lives in the property, and I believe the mother lives in another.
And from us removing the debris so far, I know there are several $1,000s worth of liens or costs out to recover against the property, so...
So can you summarize what we've done, just because I want Mr. Levesey to know that we haven't just...
There have been 6 citations. He basically has pled guilty on 6 of them, and they're extensions from the judge for him to pay the fines. On 2 of them, he failed to appear, and there are actually arrest warrants out for him on 2 charges. So those are the 6 citations, and that's kind of the status of them.
Besides the district court action, can we go in and remove debris?
We do that. We have done that.
When's our next? When are we going to do it next?
How much does he owe us for removing?
We recently just had a cleanup there on 5/14 of 18 this year, so a couple weeks ago, and he currently right around $8,000.
I provided you pictures from last Saturday. That's the cycle.
Since we cleaned.
Since we've cleaned, this is what it looks like?
Yeah.
Where does it, is he running a business like it's out?
Yes. And Charles Locke last year spoke that he believed that he was a scrapper who was running a business and using big junk, and he said that he couldn't prove that. Well, Mr. Greenwell, I am a CPA, a trained auditor, and within 20 minutes we provided the city attorney's office, we provided multiple officials online items that were being sold with pictures of these properties. Yet the city chooses not to address that issue as well. So again, we need to have codes that are enforceable, that allow the code enforcement folks to affect, the will of the people and protect the people.
Well, if it's okay with the council, I'd move that the municipal, not move, but ask the municipal councilor's office to create a resolution to bring for the district court injunction.
Can I amend that and just say not only the district court action, but within the next 10 days we go in and remove debris again?
Yeah.
There's no
big junk is this week. So the big junk pickup is this week. There will be vehicles there, and that's part of it. It is a cycle, but the cycle we've got to stop this cycle. I mentioned last year the definition of insanity is repeating the same activities and expecting a different outcome.
Do you think there's cause for either the city county health department or DHS to be involved?
My belief is that they have been informed of these conditions and situations. I haven't personally involved them, but I'm aware of others who have indicated that they have.
What would be the threat to are there children living here?
There are 2 minor children that do live in this home.
So what would you believe the threat to the minor children?
Well, one of my neighbors will bring up a photo that he has that shows you the conditions of the backyard. That's what you can see in the front yard. Children are out and playing in this street. One of my neighbor's children plays with one of these minors, and again, it is a safety hazard with the junk and debris, the nails. They've been trying to do some remodeling, but again, there's boards and nails and all sorts of materials there that create a health hazard for anybody who's around it.
Well, just the RV in between the houses creates a fire hazard. Fire can't get in there, and so I'd like to amend the motion to say that we go out there and clear up debris within the next 10 days. Send him another bill.
Yeah, I think there's 2 separate things. You're asking for a resolution to be prepared for June 19th, and you're giving direction that could probably be executed without a resolution, which I suspect we all concur with.
Big trash day is what, Wednesday?
Wednesday.
So we could do it this Wednesday?
Yeah, and I've driven by this property, and it's horrific, and I've directed anyone who will listen to take the strongest legal steps that we can, and it sounds like we've figured out what that path is. The one lingering question I have is, for Kenny or LaShawn or anybody, is if we have a outstanding arrest warrant and he's there every day, why hasn't he been arrested? LaShawn, are you the best person to handle that?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. LaShawn Thompson, Court Administrator. The 2 outstanding arrest warrants on behalf of Mr. Eads, when tickets are issued from code, they are issued to the property owner. So we don't have identifiers in our system. I've worked with in collaboration with Code, Legal, and the Police Department to get those identifiers. We now have the identifiers on behalf of Mr. Eads, and the new warrants were issued as of this morning with all of his identifiers. The warrants will be given to the municipal court detail unit, and then they will execute those warrants.
Okay.
We can, under the statute, and I'm sure we probably have filed a notice, we can do summary abatement of this, which means we can go on there and remove the stuff without giving additional notice, and you can do that for 6 months.
So we don't need a motion for that? Is that what you're saying, the summary abatement?
No, that's it's already in the statutes and the code, and it's just a matter of administratively doing it.
But we need a resolution for the other legal action.
Yes, for the legal action in district court, we
I'd
do.
second the legal action.
Okay, well, we'll do that in 2 weeks. We can't make those
It's not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda today, but we'll have it for June 19th. But we do have some actions coming.
Then I would at least ask that once the summary abatement occurs, that we are all notified that it's been done, it's been prepared.
And sooner or later, all those charges for removing the junk and debris or go as liens against his property, and they're sent over to the county treasurer's office. So sooner or later, he's either going to have to pay thousands of dollars to the county treasurer, which comes back to the city, or they're going to sell his property, is what's going to happen.
Okay, well, I think we have a path here. There's a resolution in 2 weeks. We're going to clean it up this week, and warrants are going to be executed presently.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming down, Tom. We also have, I believe maybe on the same topic, Marcus Giannini.
Yeah. So my name is Marcus Giannini. I live at 2404 Northwest 42nd Street. Today I'm here to talk to you about the same issue that Tom brought up. What I passed to Ed is a list of social media postings. What I really want to express to you guys is how much this affects the neighborhood and the city. There are over 200 comments directed at this one property from Tom's last visit here and a posting from 2 weeks ago. I really feel that this has gone on far too long. I mean, Tom has made references to 2013 that this has been a problem. And as a citizen, I feel that our needs are being ignored. I really do appreciate today the council taking up this measure to abate the mess. So thank you very much for that. And I do appreciate you setting forth the motion to take legal action. But I just really feel you, as our representatives, need to know that this problem is bigger than, Tom or me or our other neighbor Matt, who is here to speak to you today. So in conclusion, I would like to say thank you for taking these resolutions, and I appreciate any action that you take towards this. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Evans, possibly on the same topic.
Hi, I'm Matt Evans. I live at 2412 Northwest 42nd Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73112. Could I hand these to you guys, please?
Sure, just pass it to Councilman Shadid.
The city has been told about this situation. It has been defined, showed to them. I, myself, to create a non-conflict of interest, I hired a company with a drone to fly over this property. It is legal to fly a drone that's registered, not within an area of a airline situation, and it was flown for me. So that way I could find out and give you visual perspective of what's going on in your city, in our city, because it's our city. As of right now, You can notify, you can see on the street that says Northwest 42nd, I have circled in a north to give you a bearing so you have ideal on which way you're going. If you look at the house in question and the house next to it, you can see that it has just moved, and you can see the backyard. Now, what I want you to pay attention to, there's an electrical transformer which provides electrical current, and me being a chief supervisory power engineer, I will tell you that if anybody had to go in and rectify any problems with that transmission line, it'd be kind of difficult. So people on oxygen, things of that nature, your wives, your daughters, doesn't matter. How would we do that? Plus, we can't get to the fire hydrant that's on the corner house, which would be 2432, because we don't have enough hose to stretch all the way between the houses because we can't get there. We'd have to go around the houses or go another block up to actually save anybody in this area. To me, this is not about what they're doing or whatever. This is about lives and loss. Something bad happens, we all have to know this. We have to hold our hand up and do what's right. I also want everybody here that if you drink Oklahoma City water to know that in between house 2432 and 2436 is the storm drain that is right next to the backyard that drains down in there. So we've all gotten a taste of this. I would hope that if our littering fines can triple in the past few years, that fines or incarceration or something of that course would be taken after something hasn't been rectified within, tomorrow will be a year. I would hope that something could be done. We need to all be accountable for what we do, and we need to be safe. And this right here, there are children, my children play. Would you like that a fence that on 2432 has been erected illegally, on 2440 you can see the fence going all the way out? So the easement law states that we must have proper easement. Well, if a car is doing 25 miles an hour and it obstructs and hits a mother pushing a stroller or something like that, and then the fire department can't get to it or see it because of this easement breakage, what should we do? And these are the questions I have.
Thank you. Okay. Last person to speak under Citizens to be Heard is Ronnie Kirk. Ronnie, if you'd come state your name and address and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Yes, my name is Ronnie Kirk from 2328 North Missouri in Oklahoma City. Y'all know I try to fight for gun law changes. Ed, I would say thanks. You reminded me when I was a young man. You fight hard. Problem, solution. The other day, me and my wife, fiance, we was out having lunch, and we're trying to find out why is it so hard for the NRA to change their solution. The reason I was thinking, the NRA donated $11 million to Donald Trump's organization for his election. The NRA is $1 billion annually corporation, which is a business. It's a business. So I was thinking on the business interest of it. If I was an NRA owner, and I looked over at my fiance, I said, go pay all the people whose kids got killed. It's not 500 yet, but it's getting close. Go give them all $1 million apiece. $1 million to 500 people to the NRA, which is $1 billion corporation, is like giving everybody $10 for all apiece for each kid that's been killed. So I was thinking that after the shooting over at Lewis, I was telling Joyce, why is it so hard to get this law changed? Because the NRA is not representing the people. It's a business representing itself. The cell phones everybody have, it's a very smart phone. All you got to do is ask it. Just ask your phone. It'll tell you all the donations given to all the lawmakers and to Donald Trump's election. It tells you everything. That's the reason it's so hard to get the gun law changed. The NRA is donating so much money for the re-election and the campaign of the lawmakers and our president that it doesn't matter about the kids' lives anymore. The kids' lives are real valuable, but they're worth more than $10 a piece. So $1 billion corporate annually, $1 million to each family over the years, they would still make money, paying out all this money to keep it's a business to keep manufacturing guns. It's a business like any kind of business, and they should be held accountable. And I branch out to y'all. Some of y'all need to think of Oklahoma. Let the other states follow. Let the other states try to do what they need to do. But think of the people here in Oklahoma first and try to work this thing out. Our kids' lives is worth more than $100 a piece.
Ronnie, we're at 3:15 now.
And last week I gave y'all some pictures. And yesterday, a man come by walking on my property saying he got a notification to come by. The city sent out for bids to have my place tore down. So I went by this place. I gave y'all the pictures of last week to see if any change been made there, because a tornado hit that 5 years ago, and I took pictures of it, and it's still the same.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you for listening.
Take care. We will now go into executive session as we earlier voted on to discuss the Ward 7 vacancy, or applicants too, I should say. We will return.